5. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Rusty Paul,
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson.
Here.
Councilmember Melody Kelly. Here. Councilmember Melissa Mueller.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle.
Here.
Councilmember Tippy DiGiulio.
Here.
Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Here. All right, I'm going to turn the floor over to the city manager to carry us through the first budget workshop.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. I'm excited to be with you all today as we kick off our FY 2026 budget process. A review of our budget calendar, which follows a similar format every year. You'll see on the slide on the screen and then also the second slide in your packet today. Our process began actually in March and April when our departments began reviewing their current year spending. In this case, it would have been FY 25 and looking forward to their future for any enhancements that they might be needing. In April and May, the process continued with budget hearings being held by my office and the CFO and our budget team with each of the departments to go through their requests. We're going to continue our process with today, budget workshop number 1, starting at 2 o'clock, and then our second budget workshop, which will be on May 20th at 2 p.m. in this same room. At that meeting, we will be reviewing any answers to your questions that you may bring up during today's meeting that we're not able to answer, as well as any that you may send to us or that we may discuss between now and the next meeting, and any responses to other questions that may arise. That will culminate in an official budget presentation with the city manager's recommended budget on May 27th at 4 p.m. And at that meeting, you'll see the line item detail for each department and the 5-year capital improvement program. We'll have our first public hearing on June 3rd at 6 p.m. in the regularly called council meeting, and then finally scheduled for the final public hearing and the adoption of the FY 26 budget on June 17th. Any questions about the calendar? All right, hearing none. Every year, council reviews our priorities during the council retreat. We do this process early because all of the budget requests that you see before you are always based on providing the level of service needed to accomplish and to meet the goals of the priorities as seen on the slide here. At the core of everything that we do is customer service and citizen engagement. Public safety, transportation accessibility and community appearance, economic development with a focus on redevelopment, recreation and cultural enrichment, sustainable growth and stewardship, and water reliability are council's adopted priorities. The budget recommendations that you will see before you over the coming weeks are all tied back to these priorities and accomplishing them on behalf of you for our city. The purpose of today's meeting is to receive feedback and direction from council as we continue developing the FY 26 budget. We're going to review some budget planning assumptions today that we've used to formulate the FY 26 budget plan, as well as understand our public safety, general government services, and facility needs as part of the city's overall service delivery and our capital program. Sandy Springs, since incorporation, has followed a priority-based budgeting format. We set our calendar early and it's published early. It begins with a review of the priorities at our annual council retreat, which was held in February of this year. I hold budget hearings in April with our department heads to review their current year budget projections and what they are requesting for 26. We then identify budget assumptions, both operational, so we can continue the high level of service that our residents demand and deserve, and also validate them early in the budget process. Our budget decisions and recommendations are always data-driven, transparent, and ultimately aligned with council's priorities. We will also be reviewing our 5-year CIP to identify proposed projects for funding. When we get to the end of today's presentation, you'll see some capital budget assumptions that are largely continuation programs from prior years. We also have new projects that are brought forward throughout the year by council, by staff, by residents that are woven into the budget recommendations. And then also in our capital program, we have prior year projects that are made fully whole in the proposed budget. And all of our project recommendations are vetted by our staff. For our operating budget assumptions, we continue to prioritize recruitment and retention efforts to remain the market leader. In this 26 budget, I am proposing a 5% cost of living adjustment for all city employees so that we can remain the market leader. For what I believe will be the last year, I'm also recommending that we fully absorb an estimated 20% health insurance increase and not increase the employee premiums. We have a new position for HR that is being proposed this year that will be critical as we begin the analysis to determine if we should move from fully insured health insurance to a self-insured program. We're also projecting an 18% increase in general liability insurance. This budget also fully funds the annual subcontractor agreements for our key public safety services, also our 24/7 call center, our public works frontline service providers, and recreation and parks maintenance. The budget also covers required debt service for the Public Facilities Authority, as well as for existing fire apparatus and equipment. And this budget also includes a recommendation for debt issuance of $20.2 million for the complete rebuild of Fire Station 1 and in addition to Station 3. We'll talk more about Fire Station 1 when we get further in the presentation. Here are some operating budget assumptions, just for comparison's sake to last year. Many of these are carryovers from prior years. We are funding our Public Facilities Authority to pay for the principal and interest on our bonds. We have an increase in the call center subcontractor agreement, previously with Faneuil, but their name is now changed to Continuum Global Solutions. We also have a projected increase in the North Fulton Regional Radio Authority operation. That number will be finalized before we have a recommended budget. We also have continued service agreements with our community nonprofits and a slight increase there that we'll be reviewing further in the presentation. I mentioned earlier an 18% increase in general liability insurance, the cost of a 5% cost of living adjustment for city employees, the estimated full cost of health insurance, which also includes the cost of dental and medical and funding HSA contributions. An increase to our animal control agreement with Fulton County, which is a projection at this time. We do not have a final number from Fulton County yet. Debt service for our fire apparatus is actually decreasing because we paid off one of the pieces last year. Public works, an increase in jail services to budget to actuals. That is both the cost of incarceration and inmate medical.
That's doubled.
Yes, it was not fully funded last year and the number came in higher. So we are adjusting it to actual. And we'll talk more about that as we go through.
Thank you.
Our public works subcontractor agreements have contractual escalators that are reflected here. Our recreation and parks subcontractor agreements are being budgeted to actuals, so there is a slight decrease there. You'll hear from Marty and Brent on those shortly for those dollar amounts. And then also a continued EMS subsidy for the enhanced services, which Chief Sanders will be talking about. Any question on our operational budget assumptions? All right, I'm going to invite Chief DeSimone to come up and walk you through the request from the police department.
Quick question, you
Yes,
are
ma'am.
going to revisit the nonprofit?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
just,
because we will
yep.
have a chance to-
there will be a lot more.
Okay.
Thank you, City Manager. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Here we go. All right, just looking at some overall numbers from last year, 2024. You can see we had 1,642 property crimes, quite a decrease from 2023. Traffic incidents also decreased from 2023 to 2024. And that's not just wrecks, that's just calls involving the roadways, and that could be a refrigerator in a road. Violent crime stayed about the same, went up just a little bit, but quite a big decrease from 2021, coming off the troubles of 2020, 2021. Our citations ticked up quite a bit from 2023 to 2024. If anybody wonders why, I'm guessing probably the opening of 285 and 400, going from full construction that it's pretty wide open right now. I'll let you look at these numbers. Sandy Springs Police, pretty busy. We arrested 3,746 people last year. Just think of that number of arrests compared to the number of complaints we get. We get maybe a half dozen complaints and we arrest that many people. Domestics are always an issue, over one a day, Sandy Springs. Traffic stops there again went up probably because 285 and 400. Raceway is open for business. Stolen vehicles recovered, there again about one a week, including one at the brand new, the headquarters wasn't even opened yet, and we caught somebody with a stolen car in the parking lot. SWAT incidents for 2024, 10. I'm guessing that'll probably decrease in the coming years because we're no longer with North Metro SWAT as of 1 January. So we just have to worry about the city of Sandy Springs and not 4 other cities. So far through now, we've only had 1 SWAT call out, and that was the fentanyl arrest that we had, which if you look at the narcotics unit, you go down to the fentanyl column. In the past, it was either in ounces or even grams that we measured it in. For 2025, we're going to measure that in pounds. So that's quite a big seizure. Any questions on?
Chief,
Yes, sir.
to Eden and Melissa, maybe, that's a big number on the traffic stops. Can we use AI? We have the ability to analyze that at all?
Yes,
And
and it's
use
something,
AI?
it's something we'll be working towards.
And that maybe that's the reason, Chief, the Raceway.
It could
But
be.
that's a big number.
Uh,
That's a really.
GDOT, the last I read, and it's probably more than this now, the intersection of Georgia 400 and 285, every 24 hours, over 500,000 cars go through that intersection. It's the top 10 busiest intersection in America. So you think of the roads in Chicago or Los Angeles, Miami, Sandy Springs is in the top 10.
Yeah, no doubt. I go through there. I'm one of those. So.
So quite a bit.
Chief, are these numbers before the school cameras? Because
Yes.
that's 2025.
Yes.
Since you talked about that, are you open to giving us just a little update on the school cameras? Are we officially ticketing now?
We are. They're up and running at the 2 high schools, the 2 public high schools. And so far, there's been no complaints that have hit my desk. Yeah.
Okay, do we have a sense of how many tickets have been?
We can get
We can
that.
pull that. We didn't pull it for this because they just went live.
Yeah,
We'll do
we
that.
don't write those, right?
No, it comes from the company.
But you can see it in real time, I guess,
Mhm.
what's going on.
Right.
And what will happen with those in the summer?
They won't,
They
unless
won't
school is
be-
in session,
yeah.
they don't operate. If they have summer school, it would operate.
Right. And it's only during those hours. The benefit with those cameras is it gives you an ALPR there all the time, 24/7. So
So Chief, quick question, Chief, have you had more license plate readers in 24 than in 23? And is that maybe why more tags are getting flagged? I don't know if there's correlation there. but-
yeah, it could be. The more cameras that we have, especially the more ALPRs, the better we are to cover the city. And if you all did the open house at the new headquarters and saw the video of how the armed robbery suspect with the knife, how the automatic license plate reader cameras picked him up and we were able to follow him with the cameras, it's very helpful. It's like eyes out on the street that never blink.
I wonder if that's why, one reason why it's ticked up.
Could be. Okay, total calls for service. I always like to point this out, and this is for you all and the work you did. But before the alarm ordinance was passed, that was always a top 10. Responding to basically fake 911, false 911 calls. And now it's not up there. Other jurisdictions that don't go to verified response, they send, thousands of man hours to something that is 99.8% false. So And it gives you other time to do other things like house checks or business checks, welfare checks, dealing with traffic. And again, domestic disputes. That's always a hard one. Always a dangerous one for police officers and one that we have to deal with every day. Any questions on those numbers? Again, talking about traffic, because traffic, it's Sandy Springs, so we have a lot of streets and a lot of traffic comes through here. Our traffic unit, that's the traffic investigators and the traffic response vehicles, the TRVs, the 2 trucks we have. There's some of the numbers they had. Flat tires went down some. I guess none of the mayor's family was having flat tires most of the year, except Dan Lee did have the services of the traffic response vehicle. Gas, crashes, and this is just crashes, 199. This is just crashes that the traffic unit works. This is not patrol. So that's for the year. Patrol does that in a week. So that's how
Is
many,
that number right for 2023? It's 38 gallons. I mean, that's,
probably.
It was right. It was very high last year.
Chief, a question on the, are we seeing, what happens when electric vehicles, EVs run out of charge? Do we have batteries capability to charge them like we're tracking gasoline?
A gas generator goes out to the scene. No, I'm kidding.
I know, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, is there a backup battery? Because we provide gasoline, but what about some folks, they just go off the road and they don't have a charge?
At that, I think they have to be towed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a tough situation. Okay.
But we very rarely run into, because there's so much techno in there, that it will tell you and yell at you like, hey, you're getting ready to run
Well,
out.
the new cars do that for gas too, so I mean.
Yes. But I guess that one little light just is not enough to do it. But that's a good question. And towing an EV, they're a little more different because they're heavier, a lot heavier. So. Next. The criminal intelligence unit, I'm sure everybody came up and saw the nice intelligence space we have in the new building, but these are some of the stats we have for it. Real-time assist. That means somebody calling 911 and I have a problem, and our analyst and our officers up there hear it on the radio and can go to a camera near there, go to a license plate reader camera and can assist. They'll get on the radio and actually help the patrol units in the field. And it's amazing what they can do, because I've heard them on the radio. Anything as simple as a shoplifting, they're like, oh, the guy just ran and put the merchandise in a bush by the MARTA station and he went down the Sandy Springs MARTA entrance to the MARTA. And sure enough, they can find it. Investigative workups. Detectives tell me that one crime analyst is worth about 2 to 3 detectives. Call detail records, that's just exploitation of cell phones or smartphones or iPads. Just like everybody else, every crime committed now, the bad guy has a cell phone. Most homeless people in Sandy Springs have cell phone or smartphone. Investigative leads, a detective will need a lead on something and they will help pull information. And their leads have resulted in 43 arrests. This number will go up in 2025 just because of the new headquarters and the new equipment we have in them. And thanks to you all for putting us in there. I can tell you just off the side that our recruiting, the numbers that we're getting every day calling in is about, we're guessing 25. There's so many people wanting to join the police department that they're not even, I went to ask them yesterday, how many do we have? I don't know, Chief, over 25. And we're full staff with the waiting list. I just gave a tour today to a chief and captain with another agency, wanted to come over, look at it. And for the request enhancements for this coming year, remote e-warrant. E-warrant is a software where the officers can do the warrant in their vehicle and don't have to get out and go to a dedicated desktop. Firearms and accessories, firearms, and it's a tool like anything else. We have to shoot so many times a year and just wear and tear on those. Vehicle apprehension device, we're going to try one of these. It's a device that fits on the front of a truck or SUV that will help mitigate, stop a pursuit. We'll see how that works out. Speed measurement, that's just your radars, or not radars, showing my age, your lasers that do speed determination. E-bikes, we have 2 e-bikes now. They're pretty high speed. I even rode one not too long ago. Amazing piece of gear. And if Officer Redcase said they're good to go, he's the one that rode to Sandy Springs from Michigan not too long ago. And they're good. I want to get another one of those. Ballistic helmets and vests. A helmet, their life is 10 years. A vest is 5 years. So we have to constantly replace those. 3D scanner, that's your Pharaoh scanner. That's for crime scene investigations, for a wreck or a homicide, where it scans rooms, scans a crash scene, and can generate everything on a 3D computer model. And for additional staffing, we want to add 1 uniformed patrol sergeant on one of the shifts at night. Right now, one shift has 3 sergeants and the other has just 2. Night shift needs just a little more supervision because there's not a chief, a deputy chief, captain, majors, everybody else running around at 3 in the morning. So we want to make sure we have enough supervision for everything. And these sergeants now are required to do bonding for people who want to bond out. So that takes them off the street. So we have to have enough so they can do that administrative work, plus be able to, supervise their troops in the field. The capital request, ammunition. We're always going through ammunition, state requirement. Canines are aging out. They're getting like police chiefs. They're getting old in the tooth. And then SWAT gear and equipment.
Is that one canine?
That's one canine.
That's one canine.
35 grand.
They used to be
I was gonna say, I
15,000.
thought they were 15, so I thought.
Yeah, I thought they were 15,000.
Very
Does
specialized.
that include going over to Europe and getting it? and
It's the
spending time over
training.
there?
Well, they do come from Europe.
I know they do,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm not a canine, expert, but they're a good piece of gear, and they're good community outreach. But it's one of the biggest things in the headquarters. We did the 2 open houses was the canine unit. There's a line of people to go in there and see the dogs in their kennels. I was there today doing this tour, and we had 2 of them in there, which is great because you can turn off the SUV they're in, bring them inside, put them in there. It's air conditioning. They have water. The canine handler can do his paperwork. His dog's right over there in the kennel, and it's nice. If you ever go over there, because I get these questions, and I ask this question, why don't they have dog beds over there? You know the answer? Anybody know the answer? Because they'll tear them up. I said, really? I said, oh yeah, they will tear that dog bed up. It's like, Anyway, I think that's it for me.
Yep. Any questions for Chief DeSimone?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
So you're in the new headquarters, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day. When we moved into this building, staff moved into this building from the old building. It's a completely different interaction with people because it's just a different building, 5 floors, there's 4 floors instead of 1. So are you guys doing anything to make sure you're still talking to your people and the size of the building isn't turning into an isolation event?
Yeah, we are. And it's probably the opposite effect. One, and this is just my personal experience because I'm over them all. I always take the steps and I pop out on different floors. Over at the court, Sergeant Guy says, hey guys, talking to his people, better watch out. The chief's right above us and he never know where he's going to pop out. So now that we're in the same building, using the same break room, the same bathroom, the same gym, I think we have more supervision running around than 4 different buildings spread out on a campus, and it's much better. One thing that I have been doing, and I've got a staff meeting on Thursday, I'm going to tell them to do this. I'll go out front and I'll just pick somebody leaving and said, hey, do you have a minute? They're like, yeah. I said, what's your experience coming here? Did it work out? And the number one thing right now, and I think we're going to have it fixed quickly, is they overshoot the building because they don't know where it is. And they overshoot the drive and they're looking for it and they look to the right and there it is, like, woo. And now they don't know what to do. So we've got a lot of U-turns, because I can see them from my office. So they go down and they make a U-turn, or they go on down to the recycling center, U-turn and come back up. So signage is a big thing. And we've been working with fast signs, and we're working on some of the things like property retrieval. The signs on the building that's pointing towards the woods instead of pointing towards the parking lot. Little things like that we're going to correct in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Are you just looking to add one officer this year?
Yes, sir. Just to even out the supervision on the night shifts.
So that'll bring it up to 198.
That's correct.
Go back one. Yeah, oh, there you go. Which will include the part-time.
179 full
Mm-hmm.
and 198 total.
Proposed is 198.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's total personnel.
Okay, next is gonna be, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the positions, so I'm looking at last year's budget and it has, at least in the final budget, it says 192 is the number that we approved. Fiscal year 25. So I was just wondering, here it says 197, so.
We didn't account for the grant in there, so that's those grant funded positions.
So there's 5 grant funded positions?
No, it had to balance back out. You don't want to know how much we went through to make sure we had these numbers correct. We didn't have the CVRG. It's 3 positions that are funded from the grant. And we went back through yesterday, we had a 45-minute conversation to make sure we were adequately and appropriately accounting for every position in this today.
How long is that grant for?
We have another 1.5 years on it.
But then after the grant runs out, don't we have to?
We do not have to.
We don't have to.
We do not have to. It is not like the old cops hiring grant where they require you. This is one through the state, and we'll have the option to either make those city positions or not.
By your definition, what's the difference between a capital request and a requested enhancement?
Capital goes multiple fiscal years. A requested enhancement operationally is something that can be completed in 1 year. So for example, police ammunition, sometimes there is a lag on getting that in, and we don't want to let those appropriations lapse. So it's a capital request, meaning the money carries forward into the next year.
Okay.
Are we having trouble getting ammunition again?
Right now, we're not.
I thought it loosened up.
Yeah, it's right now, but that can change, political climate changes, the materials, lead and gunpowder and all that. So but right now we're pretty good. And because of this new headquarters, we've got a great storage area for it, on concrete, climate controlled, very secure. I was just in there today. So next time we come over, I'll show you the ammo. I was very impressed the way we have it stored.
Okay. Are we at a point where we can anticipate what type of percentage increase we might?
That'll be in the line item detail. So you'll get that in 2 more
So
meetings.
that's 2 more meetings.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're not at that point.
In terms of dollars.
Correct.
Yeah. Does the police department manage the opioid fund and the confiscated assets fund?
No, that's, and confiscated assets is PD, but opioid is, they help spend the money, but it's done by finance and city manager's office.
Okay, okay, I just wanted to, I guess there's nothing we need to discuss.
There's no enhancements requested for those, so you'll hear about those with the full recommended budget.
I think those are my questions.
Thank you all. And always thank you for the support for the police department.
All right, Chief
Right.
Sanders.
No fire jokes and
Look at y'all.
I want to thank you. I thought you was going to say that, why the bed's in there because they're not firemen. Good afternoon. So I want to go through the, fire, activity for this past, year. In 2024, the fire department ran a total of, 12,175 calls. In the black line there was 248 fire calls, 1,461 false alarms, and then 4,565 EMS calls and 5,901 other calls. And those other calls will be anywhere from a gas leak inside structures, a ruptured gas line. This would be good intent calls that we often get. And then special incidents, hazmat incidences on the roadways, those types of things are all included in that 5,901 calls. If you'll notice on the right-hand side of the gray line chart there, column is 10,502 calls that were run by AMR. If you'll notice, the fire department's responses have gone down with EMS. That was intentional. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we spoke about reducing the number of calls that the fire apparatus are responding on EMS, which are not, quote, emergency, life-threatening EMS calls. And we're really doing a good job on that to reduce those responses. Our average response time citywide is in 2024 was 7 minutes and 7 seconds. Our average response time by station, this illustrates what each station response time average is. Then cardiac arrest. With cardiac arrest, we have a total of 96 incidences in 2024. We had 11 of those incidences, CPR was in progress. And we had 4 incidences where there was no CPR started. And we had a survival rate, and we determined that survival rate is the patient walked out of the hospital is 10 out of those 96 incidences, which is a very good number with our responses and getting on the scene and the intervention that our medics provide there to restore life in that patient.
Chief, let me ask a question. I noticed that the CPR numbers have gradually dipped. I know a few years ago, we had a real focus on training. And though the numbers aren't, huge, but on a percentage-wise basis, it's down. So are we doing anything to try and make sure that people are trained and understand, know that CPR is a life-saving?
Yes, we do continual education with that. I'll get you the specific number that we have trained in 2024.
Right.
But it's well in over 100 folks that we train every year. And I will get that number for you.
How often do you need to be recertified?
You should be recertified every year.
So 100 out of 110,000 people, and still a very small group. Maybe we'll look at some public education activities to try and see if we can drive that number up, because it truly does make a difference.
Yes, sir, it does. And if we did discuss early on, first year about a program called AVI, which is AED program that we're looking to do citywide, and we're still in discussion. I'll show you one of those enhancements in a few minutes. We continually update this with our data, showing you the hot spots of where all of our average response times were, and the more intense spots are showing where we're having our challenges to get there within that 7 minutes. That's where we're stretching out, where we're not getting there in 7 minutes. You see those where they're in the orange or yellow.
It looks like the hospital area.
Yes, sir. Remember now that apparatus response from the city of Atlanta.
But he's also talking about medical districts.
Yes.
What drives it? Why are we going to the hospital to take people to the hospital like this?
Yeah, no
Sir, we're not. We're responding to EMS calls, especially at Meridian Mark, the nursing home. We have numerous calls there every day. And we also respond to a number of, that's also including 400 wrecks with injuries, wrecks with entrapments, EMS calls all along Peachtree, Dunwoody, every office building. Think of all the office buildings, mid-rises that we have over in that area. We're called continuously to EMS calls in those buildings. And the time we get to the patient, realizing that we get on the scene, we still have to go to the floor the patient is on, which extends that response time.
How is the program working out where we're charging them to go out there to live to? pick people up?
I can get you I'll bring that,
We'll put that in workshop too.
workshop too. I'll bring you that number.
We're still doing that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've had some collections and we'll bring that to you.
It looks like 400 and 285 are really the hot spots. Now that 285 and 400 are open, you've got the distributor collector lanes. I know it's a challenge to service some areas in there. How are we handling that?
Our response times have gotten longer. One of the niche enhancements that I'll be sharing with you in a few minutes is a drone program. We've now looked at drones that are up to 45 minutes, have airtime. And we're looking, if approved, we plan to dispatch that from City Hall here. We can get over the scene within seconds, be able to give better information to our units that are en route. It's a big challenge. We just got notification this week from GDOT on detour lanes that they're planning to close on some road work over the next year to 2 years. So we're having to deal with that. Anytime they close those roads or those lanes, it extends our response times. But we're really looking at any way that we can to get on that scene quicker, to really see what we have on those instances. The 285, 400 is a challenge for us, especially with traffic. I mean, I was watching one of our trucks the other day. It's just inching through the traffic. It's so thick, especially during rush hour.
Can we go back for just a second? I wanted to make sure I understand exactly in the northern portions where there's kind of some hotness. Where is that exactly? Is that?
That is, we have some senior facilities up in those areas.
Cliff's up there, I think.
Excuse me. Hunt Cliff, but we've got senior, we've got mid-rises up there with senior communities. We have the apartment complexes up there that we respond to a lot of EMS calls.
Okay, so it's more or less along Roswell.
That's correct. This is all calls now.
Yeah, not fires.
No, it's all calls, including fire.
Oh, okay.
Total fire incidences, this is just fire calls, structure fires, dumpster fires, car fires. You'll notice where they are with the light, the red dot is enhanced. We've had more than one fire in that area.
So the gray dots is fires.
It's fires, but if they're red, we have more in that area.
Gotcha.
Total of 248 in 2024.
Are they predominantly in our apartment complexes? Can you come see?
Not necessarily, well, the enhanced ones are.
And is that Roswell?
The enhanced ones are. You see, we have, we've had structure fires all throughout the city, but in those red areas where we have more so.
How many total structure fires did you have?
200, I'll get you the specific number. We're about to publish and issue our annual report. We're a little late, but we're trying to, we had to really work on our numbers to make sure they were accurate. And we plan to put that out by the end of the month. And it really gives you also those, how many actual structure fires we had. This is 4,565 responses that fire did notice. That is around the hospital district. You see, it's where a lot of EMS calls, a lot of wrecks, those type of things. And then along 400 up there in the north end. They're all throughout the city, but that's where we respond and to a lot of the calls. The other incidences, that's the including all the gas leaks, other incident types. You see where they are, and then the concentration. These concentrations are what really weighs down prolongs our response times, because we look at the totality of that. That's 7,362 incidents. These are all incidences in the city of Sandy Springs, the 12,175 colored, not using the heat map.
Chief, what are most of the false alarms? Are they EMS? Are they fire?
False alarms are normally commercial buildings.
Commercial? Is there anything that we can do because there is a pretty high number, is there anything that we can do to?
We have, our fire marshal's office constantly goes out and they go out and educate. It's really based on the systems. We get a lot of that when weather changes, especially in the winter, when they first turns on the heat. We get a lot of fire alarms during that time. And you think we got 3,000 commercial buildings here in the city or more. We get a lot of responses, a lot of calls for service during that time. But I'll get you better information on that for you for the next meeting. So one of the initiatives that we are looking to do in the fire department, and we need your consideration and approval, is to change our shift schedule for the fire department. Currently, the fire department works 24 hours and then they're off 48 hours. They have 2 consecutive days off, then they come back to the fire department and work 24 hours. There's 40 plus fire departments throughout the country. There's 3 in the state of Georgia that has transitioned to what's a 48-96 shift schedule. And this is proving to be very popular. It's something that a trend that's moving forward, and there's a lot of benefits to it. But keep in mind, I'm amazed of how many counties our fire personnel drive through to come to work for Sandy Springs. We have people that live in LJ, Covington, Dawsonville, Social Circle, Rome, Georgia, Gay, Georgia, Jefferson, Macon, Rockmart, Rome, Sharpsburg, drive through many departments to come to work for Sandy Springs. And anything that we can do to help them in their life, I think we should look at it. We're looking to propose this as a 6-month proposal. We did conduct a survey internally. Some of the comparisons of the shift, it gives you 4 consecutive days off each year. You don't get that on the 24-48. If we transition to this, they would get 60 days, 60 consecutive 4 days off if we transition to this. If they take 1 shift off, they get 5 days. If you take one of the 24-48 off, you get 8 days. But if you take off both days on the 48, you actually get 10 days off if they want to take vacation, have a 10-day week. Mornings waking up each year with their family. Right now on the 24-48, they only wake up 120 days with their family. By transitioning to this new schedule, they would actually wake up 180 days a year with their family. Full weekends off, Saturday and Sunday. Right now, they don't, because of the schedule rotation, they only get 17. But with the new shift schedule, they would get 26 weekends off. Work 1 weekend day where they only have to work 1 Saturday and Sunday. This is the only benefit to stay on the 24-48 is the 35 days. They get 1 of those days off. If we go to the 48-96, it's 17. 4-day weekends off each year. Right now, they don't get any of those. If we went to this program, they would get 9. And then days commuting each year. This is major. Driving through all those counties. I was talking to one of our fire guys the other day. They spend $400 a year just to go, $400 a month just on travel time back and forth to work. That would cut his pay or his time in half and his cost in half because they would only have to commute here 60 times a year. Still working the same amount of hours, just on a different schedule.
Are people doing that?
Yes, there's over 40 departments across the United States that are currently doing it.
That are doing that?
Roswell went to it about 8 months ago. They've had great transition to it. Johns Creek has gone to it, and we're now looking at it as well.
Chief, when they switched over, did they do a trial period? Did
Yes,
they do trials?
they're just completed that 6 month. We're proposing that as well.
But the cost would fully fund it for a year because if it's successful, we would stick with it.
There's $175,000 cost that I'll be sharing with you in just a minute. But so we did a proposal, a survey. We had 70.7% of our 100 line personnel that, and you see the responses there that supported it. And then we had 27 respondents that opposed it. However, I have since went out and spoke with the folks in the fire stations, and everyone that I have spoken to so far is willing to go through the trial period. Some advantages, these are the advantages that we have looked at that you can see. We've seen the departments that have transitioned to it here on the bottom here, sick leave, reduction in the use of sick leave. One of the disadvantages is it will cost $175,000 in increase in salaries. You may have one shift that has to work Christmas Day and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but overall, the advantages outweigh the disadvantage of the transition. So our enhancement is we're requesting the $175,000 for the shift change. Our capital requesting to replace some fire equipment of $190,000. Over at Station 2, if you recall that mezzanine, training mezzanine, we want to put some roll-up doors up there so they could smoke that area up with friendly smoke and do their training up there. That's a $35,000 request. As I've shared with you that our need for Station 1 rebuild, as well as an addition onto Station 3 that is very much needed. We don't have a decon area over there, Station 3. We have no place for the workout gym area is actually in one of the bays. We really need to do some expanding there to really meet the needs of the fire personnel and in that fire station. And then also firefighter turnout gear, we have to replace that on an annual basis. We're on a 10-year replacement schedule where we try to replace a lot of that gear every year. We're not asking for any additional full-time staff, and we have 123 full-time staff, 4 part-time with a total of 127. Any questions? This is also just a conceptual drawing of Station 1. Be relocated if approved on the current location for where Station 1 is. Any questions on the fire side?
Is the current Station 1 functionally obsolete?
It is. It's in bad
It's in pretty
condition.
bad shape too.
We have flooding in the back that we've tried to mitigate. I mean, it's really, it's end of its life.
I have a question about I guess Fire Station 1, since we're on that slide.
No, I'd be glad to come back.
Yes, no, I have a few questions on Fire Station 1.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the budget exercise, if we approve the budget, there's also additional business, right?
Oh,
that
yes.
has to be conducted. Okay.
So we would be coming back. I've already been in consultation with our financial advisor. We would not begin the transaction process because we will have to be re-rated before we go out to issue debt again. And that would not begin until late June.
Okay.
So council would not be voting to issue the debt until the fall would be the earliest.
So it's included in the budget.
Yes.
Just
As
as a preliminary.
it will be in the proposed budget so that we have a complete financial picture for FY26. But if at some point council decides not to issue the debt, then we'd bring back a budget amendment to take all of that out.
Okay, and will we go into detail during this exercise about the 20.2 million and where that number comes from for the public?
We will later, not, so in budget workshop 2,
Right.
we're going to, correct. Yes, ma'am.
Great, good stuff. The 175, 200, that's gonna be annual,
Yes.
right? Ongoing, sort of the operational. Okay. One other question. Another question I'm interested in, the programs that have been implemented this year, I just wanted to know what the costs or how the costs for those are reflected, if there is even a cost to your budget. That just, and maybe not today, but I'd be curious.
Which program?
Well, I don't know. I feel like there was multiple programs. I don't know,
Excuse me?
you guys are always doing something kind of cool, so.
The community program, maybe,
Yeah.
they just rolled out.
Community paramedicine program?
that-
Oh, community, okay.
that's one of-
We do have data on that. I can get you a follow-up with that.
I just wonder what the costs were for that.
Okay.
Can the community data, can that be broken out as a separate number for calls that community takes care of?
The community paramedicine program, yes, sir.
Because you've got them all, they're all lumped into the totals that you have.
Yes, sir.
It'd be interesting to separate those out, just see
Okay.
how
I'll
many
get
are
that
actually
for you.
going to that.
Question, so if we were to do fire station 1 and 3, those changes, would we anticipate the response times coming down for those?
On station 1, the response times would not change.
Okay,
On station 3, nor would station 3. It's just,
okay,
our data shows us that we cannot relocate station 1, which we initially 7 years ago looked to put it at Morgan Falls. Our data shows us we can't do that. And so we've got to look eventually, as I shared the other day during a meeting with you, that over the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna have to look at putting a second engine. That's why I'm proposing 3 bays there for station 1, another engine in that bay to be able to meet the response needs that we have up there, the response times.
so it would improve if we had another
Engine,
engine.
that's correct.
So building it bigger to have that bay.
That's correct.
Will in the future allow for that.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Chief, is that the best location to put the station, put it back?
This station, as we've proposed and suggested, station 4 that's currently in Atlanta needs to move somewhere around the Glen Ridge, Roswell Road area. Our data shows us in the future, 5, 10 years down the road, station 6, that engine that we will put at station 1, which is this one, will need to be somewhere around Dunwoody Place and Roswell Road in the future. But the priority is we've got to get out of the city of Atlanta at some point. And we really need that station. And honestly, in 10 years down the road, you will have to look, or council will have to look at putting a station somewhere in the southwest side of the city to meet response time demands. That this will grow over time.
Thank you, Chief. So I'm interested in the impact of these decisions on, the station 4 is the one down on Wayuka, right?
Correct.
Because we're not budgeting for station 4 at all this year. And I want to know if that precludes us, Eden, or to the extent it ties our hands for opportunity that through real estate decisions or deals or whatever policies that we can have another station. Do we have the capacity to
We
do?
do.
Can you elaborate on it?
Yeah.
Because I think the citizens of the southern end of the city are going to want to know as we continue to invest in these additional stations, which I visited station 1. I think it's needed and it's pretty clear, but we have some very, very pressing needs on the southern end of the city. And including getting out of the city of Atlanta, but both stations are in Atlanta, so southwest and south. So what's our capacity and what's our plan for relocating that station? I mean, that's critical.
So we have been working for the better part of 2 years to try to find a location for a station on the south portion of the city. Thus far, we've been unsuccessful because of current uses or cost. If we had a resident or a business owner that wanted to, donate a piece of property to the city, that would certainly be wonderful for us to be able to put a fire station 4 on. But so far, we haven't found a location that fits within our budgetary restraints for the purchase of the land plus the cost of building the station. Having said all of that, I have worked with our financial advisors, and we do have the capacity to issue the additional debt to be able to build station 1, add on to station 3, and build a new station 4 when we find a location to put it without negatively impacting our AAA bond rating. Now, it would still impact us on our ability to continue doing some capital projects that we do as pay as you go each year because our debt service would increase.
Right, but how high on the totem pole is this as a priority? I mean, obviously, public safety is number 1 on our graph. And so within that category, this one, I'm not sure it's less than fire station 1. The problem is we don't have the
location.
But there are municipal powers that exist to find locations and act on that.
Should council be willing?
Should
Yeah.
council be willing? So my question is, I want to be sure that we explore those options to exercise council power and have the financial wherewithal to do it. Let me ask you this, if you had, let's just imagine a world in which you had land for Station 4, where would that rank on this priority, Station 1, the addition to 3, and a new Station 4? So how would you rank those projects if the land happened to magically be available?
By professional opinion, they're equal because of the condition at Station 1. It needs to be replaced
I understand.
for the health and safety of our firefighters. I personally believe that Station 4 is a top priority as well.
So if they're equal, then they're both top priorities.
Yes,
Okay, so,
it's a matter of
That-
not having a place to put it.
right, but there are opportunities potentially for the city to exercise its powers of eminent domain over potential properties. And we can address that. I just want to make sure we're prepared financially if we elect to do that, because you just said, I think you answered the question, that it's the top priority with the top priorities, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, to follow up on that, there is no money, if we're gonna go out to the financial markets with the issue more debt. Should we loop Fire Station 4 in, even though we don't know the location yet? Loop Fire Station 4 into that debt burden so that we do a one-shot deal, borrow X amount of dollars. And again, these numbers still give me heart failure.
I agree.
Okay, these numbers are just so huge. But my point is, if it's the same priority, let's put a plug number in there so that if we do go out for financing, we can cover everything. Should a location pop up?
Mr. Paulson, the challenge is once you issue debt, you have a limited period of time that you can spend it.
You have roughly a year to start spending,
So if you don't have a place for it yet.
That's it? Why
Yes.
is that?
to
arbitrage,
start spending. Mhm.
yeah, you run into the arbitrage problems that you're making money on borrowed money. And the municipal
Okay.
bond market doesn't allow that.
So you're borrowing one tax-free and the arbitrage is taxable income. And since we're not a taxable entity, we're actually making a profit on there. So about 20 years ago, that was changed because it used to be able to do that. Borrow and go ahead and arbitrage out and make the spread on there. And it was changed about 25 years ago.
But the power is within the body to say we have a location if we chose to exercise eminent domain over a location. So that means we have to decide. I would rather not do that. But being a top priority, and if the location is compelling enough, I think that needs to be brought forward to this body this year sooner rather than later. So I just want to make sure we're prepared as we go down the road, have a contingency plan to include debt for that property. Because once we've acknowledged if we actually have a property, that it is the top priority with the other top priority.
How actively are we looking at sites?
We have narrowed it down to roughly 3 sites, and the primary one, the owner has not been willing to work out an arrangement with us. I'm going to try one more time, and if council wants to exercise the powers, as Councilman Bauman has mentioned, I will make that bluntly clear to that property owner, because that is what we believe is the ideal location.
Yeah, and there's an advantage of property is not currently developed
Correct.
Versus in the future when a property might potentially be developed, the costs could change and the opportunity could change. So it's a function of opportunity and timing and available capital. So I think that's something that
Well, we
this
also
body
have
looks
to
at.
build into our anticipation that there may be litigation if we do exercise those powers.
Correct. Well, that's why that's why we
So
stopped
that
talking.
will affect the timing of all of this.
Well, I mean, are you recommending that we don't take this?
No, I'm just saying that that has to be part of the calculation.
Yeah, and I think we're being a little cryptic so as not to overly dispose the potential locations.
It comes into play, particularly if we go ahead and borrow the money, then we start running into the arbitrage problems if that goes. for a
Which
while.
is why I think sooner rather than later, the body should consider whether it wants to put literally the property before the horse. We ought to take up the property question. I mean, we'll know what it is and we know what, I think we need to give direction to the city manager sooner rather than later is what I'm saying.
Don't disagree with that at all. Just realize that.
I do.
There's timing issues.
I do.
All right,
Very well.
anything else?
So real quickly, our emergency management is a separate area in our budget. We requesting and we need to update our continuity of operations plan and our emergency operations plan for the city. We have went out and checked the market and we need $90,000 there to be able to go through that process. It'll take us about 8 months to go through that process, working with all the departments. AED replacements, we've got to replace all the AEDs in the city. This includes all the ones in every police car. That's a $375,000 project. As capital request that Avi, once we get the sponsorship, we've got one commitment on the sponsorship for the Avi program. We're seeking that from other companies within the city to be sponsors with that. But this would take an annual cost for the city of $70,000 to maintain that program. The drone program that I spoke to you earlier about, we need $90,000. And then finally updating the emergency access system for our community gates. Where we have gated, we need to update the technology there. It's a $50,000 request. We have one person that is approved and in the emergency management program. Any questions? Thank you.
Well, I do have a question, sorry. I have a couple of questions. I'm looking at the 5-year CIP and there's just a couple of differences in a few line items. So for fire equipment replacement, it looks like for fiscal year 26, we anticipated 57,881. It looks like now that's changed to 190. And I was just curious about why the difference, or maybe I'm even misunderstanding.
So the 5-year CIP is for planning purposes only for the out years, and we always put what we believe will be the worst case scenario, the not to exceed numbers there. As we go through the budget process each year, those numbers change depending upon what the actual costs are at that point in time.
Okay.
You'll get an updated 5-year CIP when we get to the actual budget presentation in a couple more weeks.
Okay, so so in this case, the number in the CIP is much lower than what's here today. So I'll be interested in knowing what changed and what caused. And the same thing is true for the turnout here. It just says 50,000 in the CIP, 100,000 here. So that's something I'll be curious about. Also, for the capital request for emergency management, I don't see the emergency management department in our 5-year CIP at all. Do we put those items under fire for the purposes of, or just maybe this is the first time they've had items?
This is the first time they would have their own line.
Okay, so they'll be reflected in the.
Yes, ma'am.
This 5-year CIP. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. All right, Marty is up next.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, for the requested enhancements for Public Works budget this year. TMC technology replacements, some of a couple of items. One, there's a virtual machine software replacement that we'll need to replace in support of the traffic management center. That takes up the bulk of that 32,000, along with a couple of ruggedized laptops that our TMC staff uses in updates to our traffic cabinets out in the field. Right-of-way landscape maintenance contract at 300,000, you see budgeted there. As you're aware, with several of our capital projects here in the last couple of years, we've implemented dedicated enhanced landscaping as a part of those projects. This new landscape maintenance contract would provide the long-term maintenance and care of those landscape improvements, such as Roswell Road at Grogan's Ferry, Dr. Kelly, Glen Ridge at Roswell Road, another example. Those landscape developments that have taken place within our capital projects, maintain those into the future. Georgia Power Streetlight Program growth and cost increases, $1 million.
big
Now,
number, huh?
that $1 million, big number. Budget last year, Georgia Power streetlight cost and utility costs, $1.8 million. Honestly, last year we should have projected to somewhere around $2.2 to $2.4 million. So we missed a projection that we and it had to do with rate increases that we didn't catch at the time. So first step that we should have caught, should have put us at a budget for this year. Our actual expenditure this year, all said and done, when the light bills come in, is going to be somewhere around $2.2 million for the light cost this year. So budgeted at 1.8. So we've got a shortfall we're covering right now within our resources.
So Marty, how much of that 1 million is for program growth versus cost increase?
Not that much as a portion of it. So somewhere around 40,000 was the net increase this past year in new accounts. The rest of it largely due to rate increases. So with this upcoming year's budget, we're recommending to you a budget increase up to $2.8 million. First thing we're doing is catching up, as I explained, the budget forecast we probably should have had yet last year to get us up to around $2.2 million. Then forecast for a potential budget increase this next calendar year with Georgia Power. And I'll offer to you the math and the numbers are very different, but we used a comparison, a corollary here. You may be familiar with franchise fees in the city. We collect revenue, a tax on revenue from Georgia Power and other utilities for their use of the right of way and for sale and services within the city. We did a corollary over the past few years, increase in collections on franchise fees for Georgia Power compared to increase in lighting utility bill. And we saw a relative comparison there. So the rates went up overall. We collected more by virtue of that, and we paid out more as well. Not 100%. There's where your delta comes in. That's the change in lighting account increases, et cetera, among it all. But the comparative rise is there as we looked at both accounts with that considered.
One of our projects for next year, we'll be looking at what we can do to drive that $2.8 million down. Is it shifting away from Georgia Power Streetlight Program where they own, operate, maintain them and we pay them for it so that it is shipped to a city owned, operated and maintained? But we need to do the analysis and determine if that's a more cost-effective solution.
I was also trying to figure out, is there a big street light road? Like, are we looking to put street lights along where?
Well, you raise one good issue though, and one outlier that we're trying to get more information on now is the Transform 285 program comes to a conclusion. Police chief talked about that. Now traffic's getting back there now. There's an interest with Georgia Department of Transportation. They've made lighting system improvements that we're not carrying right now on our bill. And many of those improvements will ultimately be ours. Some of that work with surface streets, et cetera. So we're working with Georgia Power or Georgia Department of Transportation right now as well to get a better understanding on the overall impact to our accounts from that transition as they move out of construction mode where the contractor's carrying the bill right now over to moving it to permanent and steady state with us once that work's completed. So some variables involved. Thus, we asked for that increase, the recommended increase up to 2.2.
Marty, am I understanding you correctly that Georgia Power is increasing our expenses based upon their enhancements to the system out there, but yet we have to pay for it? Or we have to pay the ongoing costs of it?
No, it's pure rate increase in this case, or rate increases is what I'm talking about,
It's
Council.
increased the cost of electrons that we're paying.
Right, okay. But they didn't increase the number of facilities out there or the number of fixtures out there.
To a
We have to pay for it.
Some they did, and as I mentioned, that was about a $40,000 over the life of last year increase and new lighting added that wasn't there before. So that's about 40,000 overall to the annual.
Marty, aren't they changing out some of the older technologies and putting in LED or something?
Yes, sir. We pretty much, with the agreement we entered into a few years ago with Georgia Power on that, we steadied out a cost. So that cost
The
doesn't.
lights are much brighter and better, and theoretically, LED should cost less as far as electrical consumption.
However, baked into that agreement we had with them was also the capital, the overhead cost to make those conversions. Swap out the older lighting technologies.
Is there amortization period of that? Does that wind down?
And that's when we're gonna have to reattack as well. So back to what the city manager, that's amortization. What about other lighting accounts? What about other opportunities we can explore with Georgia Power is something we need to explore in the upcoming year.
They charge us a price per fixture now, and that number isn't going down, which is
So-
another reason we have to take a.
Our last comprehensive audit with Georgia Power Company on our lighting accounts was from 2020 to 2022. So relatively fresh in terms of a comprehensive audit on all lighting accounts. Right now, we're seeking a less ambitious reconcile with Georgia Power, just to make sure that the methodologies have been correct as they've applied new lighting accounts and assessments this year. Yet a deeper dive into that as well as with the council.
The $1 million, that expenditure, whatever it was for this current year, where does it reflect? Is it a line item in the budget? I'm just trying to find it, and it's probably called something.
Tony's checking, Dr. Kelly.
All right, thanks. While we're doing that, the landscape maintenance contract. How does that compare? I just want to be able to reconcile it also with the public works subcontractor agreements, which we expect to increase by $759,000.
So it would be anew in addition to the other subcontractor agreements we have now.
Okay, so then we'd be looking at a little over $1 million in sort of increases related.
Where the others were adjustments based on escalation
Yeah.
factors, et cetera, the quotes that the subcontractors gave us for their cost to operate in this upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, so do any of those subcontractors handle the landscape maintenance?
No, they do not. So it's not in the scope of
That's
any of the
what you mean. It's
services of
different.
those folks.
I understand.
Primarily, these right-of-way maintenance contracts you see now are mowing. It's mowing, trimming, litter patrol, those kinds of things. No landscape bed maintenance included in the scope of services that we competed for that work.
Dr.
And-
Kelly, if you look at page 54 in your adopted budget book for FY 25, line number 531235, streetlights.
Okay, so it's under streetlights, and so we'll see
That new number will be 2.8 million.
2.8, yep, that's what we'll see. Well, I'll be, because even the 1.8 was a 13% increase. TMC technology, we did replace the walls, right, this year? No, the wall what is it called, the wall?
The video wall.
The video wall, yes, we did do that, okay. And this is just for some smaller items.
Right. So I was just mentioned, city brand new, as a matter of fact, the budget, we all thank you very much for that budget you offered last year, provided we just replaced the wall. As a matter of fact, the team is over there bringing the wall to life this week, taking the software and bringing the cameras up, et cetera now. So the new video wall in place now was just installed last week, and the team's bringing the new wall into operation this week.
Okay, thank you.
Marty, if I may, so the landscape maintenance contract is going up 300,000. Is that because there's more area to maintain and landscape than there was before?
Or is it just escalation?
Yeah, it was just escalation.
Landscape maintenance, it's a new requirement. So previously, Public Works hasn't had a landscape bed maintenance contract. So some of the.
Sure we have. We've had people do landscape maintenance.
We have.
This is the section in the T-splost areas that we've added landscape beds. So the center median at
Okay.
Roswell and Grogan's Ferry, the roundabout at North Side. There's some of the others.
So those are new areas that we're
Correct.
having to add into
Yes,
this.
sir.
And these are beds, so there's a quarterly requirement for mulching, you replace
Oh, I
the
see, as
plants,
opposed to
those
mowing.
kinds of things. So not mowing, trimming, et cetera.
Okay.
So, and some of the other landscape bed maintenance you see throughout the city, primarily related to recreation and parks work, they've been taking care of those. These are the capital roadway projects that we're now picking up a landscape requirement on as well.
So, years ago, I went to a hotel in Las Vegas and they had these trees inside the lobby that they looked fantastic. They were not real trees, they were preserved. That was the Las Vegas term for preserved. But they never had to feed them, never had to mow them, never had to water them. So can we do any of these, can we use preserved plants in any of these islands so that you plant them once? They look the same year round and then you don't have to water them, don't have to do anything with them.
We haven't explored that yet, Council.
Just want to put slot machines in the lobby of City Hall.
Well, that's.
That might be a good source of revenue.
Let's get the plants, the preserved plants in first. We don't have to maintain them anymore, right? I guess nobody does that, huh?
Performing Arts Center.
The one trick I've seen is sometimes when shrubs die like that, if you take spray paint and get just the right color, they'll hold up.
I like that.
But they don't preserve forever, so.
To that actually just reminds me of about an hour ago, I got this question, actually has implications here. About our attitude toward native plants and leveraging native planting. Do we have a mandate to do that, or is that?
The list we adopted.
Yeah, you do,
Okay,
and we certainly push for native species in all cases.
so we strongly encourage,
We have some requirements within the technical manual. So
okay,
I can't say that never a non-native species gets planted in scenic space, but we do have a process in that area and push for native species.
can I say majority, can I use that word, or predominantly?
Yeah, so most of the things that you see that are permitted plantings, they're gonna come from that list of species.
You're getting the text now.
No, this is one
Oh, okay.
person. I'm not that one, you are.
When you're talking about putting slot machines in the lobby of the city hall, apparently there was a building that was torn down not too long ago in Sandy Springs. That was a commercial building that apparently had a basement. And when they tore the building down, they found gaming tables in the basement. They'd been running illegal gambling operations in the basement for some time.
Gambling in Sandy Springs.
Did they have a business license?
I don't know. The building was empty when it was torn
Well,
down.
at
So
least-
this was something that had existed.
At least we've got the warning signs on those crypto machines.
Okay, Marty, keep going. Marty's not going to read you the entire list. Many of these are carryovers from prior years. I do want to point out a couple of these that are partial year funding because they had been previously funded. Lake Forest Drive, the Allen Road intersection improvement, and the Long Island Drive at Mount Vernon Highway intersection improvement. Then one other one, before I'll ask Marty to explain any others, is pavement management program. You remember we had a very lengthy conversation last year about always trying to appropriate $7 million a year for pavement management throughout the city. We are still doing that, but what you do not see here, through the generosity of the state, they recently made available to the city a local road assistance grant of 1.3 million, as well as the anticipated LMIG money, the local maintenance improvement grant of $1 million. So that brings down what the general fund would need to support for pavement management to 4.7 million and still gives us 7 million to maintain our PCI score at 80.
Do you have others to bring up or can I go to questions?
Marty?
Absolutely, sir.
Traffic calming. So we now have a goal in 40 years of 0 fatalities. Thank you, John. Saved us.
It's only 15 years from now,
You saved lives, saved lives for us.
15 years from now.
Those 10 years. So, traffic calming is just low hanging fruit. Maybe it doesn't save lives, but it certainly lowers blood pressure, might save cardiac arrests. And, we know how hard it is to get it done. We know how much people want it. I would like to propose that we revisit our traffic calming policy, but anything we do to revisit it would raise the cost. So we need to be thinking about finding money to add to traffic calming, because if we ease the process, let's say we reduce the petition requirement, or if we increase the city contribution, either one of those things will yield a greater cost. I assume we don't have a whole lot of money sitting in there. Is that right, guys?
We always have adequate though. So the 50,000 you see in this year's budget has pretty much been an annual steady state.
That's right. But if we change the policy
Correct.
to make it looser and easier, then that money could be expected to go up. Now, we haven't changed the policy yet, but I fear that we bring up changing the policy and then the answer is, well, let's wait till next year because we don't have the resources this year. So simultaneous with this budget, I don't know where it would come from at this point. I haven't seen the totality of the budget. But I do wonder if we might consider quadrupling or quintupling it to 250. But that's just out of thin air. If we were to loosen the petition requirement somewhat and decide that we would pay instead of, was it 50%?
It's 50%.
Yeah, so if we basically said we would pay it, if nothing else changed, then that number would double. If you say that 50,000 is the right rate, so
Right, you could make that.
I really don't have a number to suggest other than to bring up the fact that we've kind of emphasized this traffic safety issue and traffic calming is part and parcel of that. So I'm going to advocate for a revisiting of the policy and therefore a corresponding increase of the amount. And if it's something we have to do over a couple of years, then that's something we have to do over a couple of years. But just want to highlight that opportunity to satisfy interest in the community with traffic calming.
So I think if we would go and change the petition, would we involve the public in the neighborhoods so they could come out? Because they may not want that change.
I think
I'm just saying it, some may want it, so
like any policy,
very
you should do it publicly and get, we should hear from the public, because I know there are people who sometimes don't want speed humps, but sometimes the objection is, I might want it, but I don't want to pay for it. So I think we should do all of this fully publicly and think about the consequences and the ramifications. Just because we consider a policy doesn't mean we change the policy, but I think it's a good time with the emphasis on reducing fatalities and improving quality of life in our neighborhoods to consider the policy. But if we don't increase the funds available, what we'll end up doing is saying, well, we can change the policy, but that's a next year thing.
I guess I just want to make sure that the neighborhoods are involved.
100%.
I'm just saying, because I've also seen the experience of people don't want it because of various things, like noise and different things.
100%.
Yeah, the people that want it aren't the ones that live near it, and I've been through that in my own neighborhood.
Yeah. Ms. Rochelle.
So you still have to get the 67% of the neighbors that are gonna be
Well,
affected.
he's saying change it and
I'm
relax.
I
saying
mean, but,
review it.
yeah, maybe, but
Well,
I mean,
I'm just
that's,
saying suggest relaxing it, sorry.
Yeah, I am.
yeah, because we haven't changed it since 2020. As I said that today, how many petitions do we get that actually don't get approved because of not enough traffic, whatever?
I don't know that I characterize as don't get approved. They become a longer term effort with the neighborhood. The review, those interested in the neighborhood will continue the dialogue with our staff for a few years. And we've got a few of those.
It's a long slog. It can be a very long slog.
It can.
I mean,
What
never sure
is-
state's got.
What is 50% of like a hump?
Speed cushions, the ones we use right now, the rubber, pre-manufactured rubber, and we're looking at a couple of other alternatives for that, based on longevity. Look like about a $15,000 installation cost.
Yeah, and also
I
that's,
definitely agree with raising, I would like to see us pay more of it too.
And that's-
That's a lot.
and it favors the wealthier
Well,
neighborhoods.
that's the total cost. So
Yeah.
that, the 15 is total. So right now,
That's still 7.
Right, it's a lot of money.
700.
And it favors the wealthier neighborhoods over neighborhoods that maybe are struggling to make end meets. This may not be their highest priority. And I think there's a certain question of, do you prioritize the calming and the safety versus the fact that some neighborhoods can pay and some neighborhoods can't? I think we need to take into consideration the ability to pay. I just think we need to look at this policy and allocate more money. I want to have the ability to do it. It's something that I've heard for years and years and years, is that we want people to go slower in our neighborhoods. pretty straightforward.
So just for everyone's awareness, Tony and Michael have pulled, we're currently having that account $230,000. So even if we budgeted the 50 that's proposed, we'd still have the opportunity, if council wishes to revisit the policy and have sufficient funding, because we haven't spent anything this year so far.
It tells me the policy's, and that may be the answer on the budget side. It tells me the policy's too hard because there's plenty of interest.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Marty. And by the way, I concur with this whole discussion, graphic calming. So let's take a look at that. And it looks like we got a little bit of money. We can relax, we can cover some. Marty, the stormwater capital improvements, 3.4, almost 3.4 million, 3.3 million. Does that include the 20% review of structure grading? You know, we're doing this.
If you look at the stormwater operations budget line immediately below it.
Okay,
Right
I
here.
see, okay.
All right, so that includes it.
That's that one. So then the stormwater capital improvements of 3.4 million. What was that this year? That sounds like a higher number than we're used to.
We've been
doing very well.
yeah, and we've been implementing as well. So that was a challenge for a few years, was being able to actually execute all of the work. It's all on private property, largely with permanent drainage easements, et cetera. Staff's been able to crack the nut on being able to get permissions more quickly, et cetera, and move on with some of the stormwater improvements there. But so this is the number has risen. The projects and the requirements don't go away. We're still assessing roadways every day for whether the roadways are jeopardized, et cetera, those kinds of things. We have an aging infrastructure out there, as you're well aware. That's thus the system will hopefully get a consultant underway here in the next couple of months to begin this year's assessment as phase one of that multi-year assessment.
So what is this year's budget for staff stormwater capital improvements?
4,250,000, but that included operations, and I am getting to it right now.
So we're probably about the same.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
So just to be clear, like in the budget, stormwater is separate, right? Because I know it's presented all as public works right now.
So there has to be a transfer out of the general fund to the stormwater fund.
Okay,
to pay
this
for it.
represents what
Mhm.
that would be transferred. I recall having a conversation last year, I believe, around, I don't know, us being more proactive with stormwater.
That's the assessment.
That's the assessment.
That Councilman Paulson's talking about.
Okay, got it.
Which is coded stormwater operation.
It's part of that.
Stormwater.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Did we already start the,
We have, the bids have come in, they're under review by the staff to begin the process of selecting the consultant to go out and begin the assessment.
And just to clarify, that is only on what we are currently responsible for.
Correct. It is not
It's
adding,
Private, the people who have easements running through their
No.
property that were never, under Fulton County, so therefore they were never turned over to the city.
Correct.
So consultant goes through this first year, 1/5 of the entire inventory in the city. So not in the city, up in the biz, selective samples from across the city in this first pass. Condition assessment on the infrastructure, then a life cycle assessment on that infrastructure that's in place so that we can come up with thus a total cost of ownership associated with the infrastructure.
So how does the stormwater operation show up on the budget itself? I'm trying to piece that out. Is it under the stormwater collection and drainage?
well, we don't currently have a stormwater utility, so there's no money coming in directly for it. It has to be funded out of the general fund. So if you look at page 105 and you're existing, that's the stormwater fund. So you see it's broken down into collection and drainage and then the capital part that's there.
Yes, so I see the capital. So the stormwater capital is represented by this 3.4 million, sort of, if I'm just trying to, and then the other. So then the operations, which came out to be, I don't know, 425 and some change.
Correct.
That would be the 420. Okay, so under stormwater collection. Right, thank you.
Ms. Rochelle.
I had asked about, some stormwater studies over at a, street near Epstein and I know Chris is gone now, so where is, like, how do I follow up on that? Is that something that you're handling or? Who's in charge of like the stormwater and to be able to follow up on these questions?
Well, that's us. So, and weekly, we assess any property that has a question about, whether they're city responsibilities or not in any particular stormwater situation. We make those assessments every week. We provide those assessments back to the property owner. The study that we're talking about really looks at the existing infrastructure, the condition of the existing infrastructure, the longevity, projected longevity of the existing infrastructure, and the cost to maintain that existing infrastructure. Some of the work you're talking about there is beyond the existing infrastructure.
So the study that we're doing, won't pertain to.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, I think there was already a letter of determination on that, Jody, years ago.
That was years ago. And
I know.
I know that it was.
We already did a letter of determination and the city did, I believe, in 2017 or 16, increase the size of the curbs there and also replace some of the driveway aprons.
Well, there's still a lot of issues, but we could talk about that. I was just wondering if the new study was going.
No, ma'am. If it would, again, it focuses on the infrastructure that's in place.
Okay, next up is Brent. Thank you, Marty. Would y'all like a 5-minute standing break?
Great,
Yeah.
Okay.
3:30.
Council.
Okay.
First,
Appreciate it. Well, so can I give you my iPad too?
first up, we wanted to touch on our registration numbers and where we are as far as participants go. We are trending in the right direction. We have more participants now than we had in a previous year. We're about 5,000 participants up over FY23, and our costs are going down. We averaged about $24 per person in our cost per program. Now we're down to $16 per person, and we attribute that to we've got some very good established programs now where we're able to reutilize a lot of the supplies. Our numbers are going up and our staffing load is the same. So we're able to realize a better cost per person in our recreation supply dollars towards those programs. And we've got new programs still to come. We just had a three-on-three basketball tournament at Hammond this past weekend. It was our inaugural year. We have 15 teams participate in that. So we expect that to grow. And Jane is also working on some adaptive self-defense classes for people in wheelchairs to be able to take a self-defense class. So new things on the horizon. Next up is our contractor programs and a year over year where you can see our program participation numbers increase for both city programs and our contractor programs. The fiscal year 25 year to date was taken back around the 1st of April into March. So we expect for those numbers to exceed FY24 based on March through the end of June, because we'll also realize our summer camp programs will be included for the remaining of this year. So good things. We are definitely heading in the right direction in terms of our programming. Next up is our requested enhancements going into next year. We are looking at a new recreation management software. The one we currently have doesn't have the best mobile application. And what we find is that's how most parents are trying to register for programs is while they're on the run using their phone. So we are looking at some new vendors for our recreation software. Our building repair projects, we are increasing a little bit in that. As y'all know, we have some aged facilities. So within that budget, about $75,000 of that is project-based between the Art Center restrooms, Lost Corner storage room and greenhouse, North Greenway restroom sinks, and Big Tree restroom doors. The other 25,000-ish is for unforeseen problems that may arise with those facilities. We are also looking at $700,000 in park maintenance projects. About $400,000 of that is project-based between mulching, irrigation, landscape lighting, playground surfacing, and turf repairs over at Morgan Falls. We also have some landscape enhancements, and then about $300,000 of that is for unforeseen park repair and maintenance items. So that park maintenance is anything outside the building. Obviously, in building R&M is anything with the structures themselves. The next one is the leisure program equipment and technology. That's for a new iPad so that at our events, we can use a ticketing system, scan QR codes and things like that. And our capital request, it is time to update our master plan. The last master plan was completed in 2019. Typically, you redo it every 5 years. So we're due to update that master plan. The Hammond Park improvements, that $322,000 includes some shelter upgrades, lighting upgrades, upgrades to the restroom building, which are much needed, security fencing on the maintenance shed, and activity building improvements. For Morgan Falls Athletic Complex, that 2.25 is the portion for the Atkins contract that y'all just approved for design. It's basically half of the next phases, which will include additional parking, stormwater improvements, turfing the fields, and some lighting. So that will continue the process of those athletic field improvements this year, this fiscal year coming up, and then we'll come back for the remaining balance of that project in 27. Morgan Falls Overlook Park, that capital fund of will include refurbishing those restrooms, 2 shade structures at the lone swing pergolas, playground equipment. We got to replace the spider web, replace webbing out there, replace the park lighting, automatic entrance gate, dock expansion, in-ground kayak racks, parking resurfacing, and some stormwater upgrades. For the racket center, we've got some lighting upgrades to do out there. And also we're going to remove the 3 old arbors and replace them with pavilions. They have some plans to start offering more programs out there for corporate events. So they would need some outdoor space to do vending and things like that. So we're going to put some pavilions out there. The next one. The 2A camera installation, we did run conduit out there at the Springway. If you're out there and saw the little yellow boxes kind of along the route, that is covering up the empty conduit for cameras to be installed along the Springway. And then the trail segment 2C construction, that $2 million is to go towards the partial grant match for that trail. That trail is estimated around $14 million. We have about $3.5 million in the bank now for the trail, and this 2 will add towards that. So that we'll have a match available if and when we receive those grant fund dollars to complete that project. As you can see in our position, our staffing, we are basically staying the same. The 11.5 is half of Willie's time paid out of the general fund for the sustainability program he runs, and then the other half of his time is paid out of the tree fund. So that's how we have a half a person.
So Fred, what about Old Riverside Park? Does it need more money? I know it's in
My
Andy's.
first question, go
Sorry,
back.
I'm just saying
No, it's okay. Ask the question.
We didn't, it's kind of, well, it's in your district.
No, ask the question. Are we done? Do we need any more money for it?
Yes.
So that one is fully funded through impact fees. So the money is there. We have around $6 million tucked away for that project. And
Contingencies embedded still in that?
yeah, so of course, we won't know until we bid. We have the construction documents are in permitting right now. We just got our permit for the Chattahoochee River corridor through ARC. So we've got to go through local permitting, and then we'll put it out to bid. So we'll get a hard price here.
And what's the construction timeline on that?
It's probably going to be about 6 months.
Okay, so by the time we get to bid, if there's other things that are needed, we're going to be getting close to next year's budget anyway. So I'm not sure that
we could amend then.
Budgeting additional money now.
But it is.
That was my first question.
Yeah, it is fully funded through impact fees though.
Okay.
How about the dog park improvements? Are we funded for that? We're comfortable?
Yeah, we are. So we completed the first phase, which was the grading of the hillside and the ditch. The new trees you see behind it and the new ditch. That was an old ditch. We just cleaned it up and opened it back up so it works. So that's working well. We're seeing a lot of this drainage come into the dog park itself. So the next phase is we've got the concept plan done, the latest iteration. We're reviewing that back through Georgia Power again. They want to make sure that we're not putting anything, particularly shade cell structures that could come detached and go into their overhead lines. So we're looking at more hard roof shade structures in that area to avoid that situation. But so that's with Georgia Power right now, just getting that review.
And we're looking at adding running water.
Correct. Yeah. And that's been tricky too, because trying to get through Georgia Power's property down there, there's a lot of underground stuff, a lot of, as you can imagine, electrical lines running underground as well. So, but we think we have a route. We have it submitted to them for their approval, and we have a plumber ready to go with water installed down there.
Great. I wanted to, so I think the first slide you had and you calculated per person, I guess how much we spend. So I wanted to give, I'm just talking to my colleagues really quick, because I've always had an interest in what we spend in Parks and Rec versus other cities. So let me just give a little bit of information. The city of Sandy Springs has about 106,000 people according to recent data. The budget was $4,767,000 last year. Dunwoody has 51,000 residents. Their budget was
$4,996. City of South Fulton, 110,000 people, $15 million Parks and Rec budget. That's all. I just want to put that out there. So thank you. But we just compare.
Mr. Shell.
Right. So I've heard some complaints or suggestions, I guess, about from the Bracket Center, the new pickleball courts, about wind shields or wind something. And is that our responsibility or is that theirs?
So they paid 100% of that renovation through the capital investment that they make as part of their contract. So certainly the windscreens could be part of their capital investment into the property. If I can talk to them.
And also the master plan update, are we just updating it just because it's been 5 years, or is there something specific that because we do a lot of these studies and spend a lot of money and just trying to figure out what comes out of it? Like, have we already done everything in the first one and now we need to like look at other, other projects, or are we just
Doing it to do it. I think it's time. I mean, what I would like to see is a better working plan for specific parks and what we want to do. And then to also just take a temperature check on what are the growing trends right now in the community. Over 5 years, you've seen a population increase. There's different families that have moved in for development. So we want to make sure that we're staying on top of what the community wants and what their needs are. So, it may not be the full $200,000. It may be more of an update to what's existing and getting some better tracking on what are some particular projects we need to be concentrating on. Instead of this massive overall view of where we are on a national level and all that, I want a more kind of scalpel approach as how to proceed with the properties.
And in the Hammond Park improvements, does that include anything to the round building? Because
Yeah, there's.
tearing it down or?
Well, unfortunately, that is one of our primary program spaces for now. We're doing the master planning of a new potential facility for there. But right now, that's what we have to work with until we can replace it. So we do offer a lot of programs out of there, and it is a pretty well-utilized rental facility for us too.
And to add to Brent's answer on the Comprehensive Parks Master Plan, we've heard many of you bring up the potential of doing a parks bond in the future. This is the type of planning effort that is needed to inform a parks bond. You really can't go out and start that conversation without knowing what the public wants to see the investments in.
And would that include buying additional property?
It could be part of that if that is what the public is bringing forward. Yes, ma'am.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Are you done? I want to make sure you're done. All right, so I'm going to tag along on that. This number is very familiar, the 200,000. I think your spending limit is 200,000, is it not?
Mhm.
So when we had the design guideline plan, it was budgeted and it came in at exactly $200,000, just like this. I want to make really clear right here, right now, even though this is within your spending guideline and we are budgeting for it, I, as a council member, want to see the scope of work, the plan, the objectives before we go out to market with this bid. Particularly if we're talking about laying the groundwork for a park bond, a trail bond, because I have really strong concerns that how you do that, setting it up for success, it needs to be community led and community driven, your project list. Studies have shown time and again, I've researched this, that community led park bonds are far more likely to succeed and pass than top down park bonds where the elected officials are kind of leading the way on the list. So how we do this is as important as what we do and what the list is. So I implore you, please, even though it's within your budgeting guideline, before we select, before you go out with the RFP, please come, if it's during this council term, please come back to us with updates so that we don't say, yeah, it was budgeted, but it was within our limits. So therefore we just did it. I don't want to repeat that. I'm not going to say mistake. I just want to make at least my direction very clear on that. I have a couple of other things. There is so much activity that we have as a city located central, north, and to the east. And that's meant to make sense. We have Morgan Falls way in the north. I would consider the Racket Center pretty central and Abernathy Art Center, and frankly, this facility pretty central. And then we have Hammond Park to the east. We cannot, we need to look for opportunities on the south side, largely with contracts for services. And the program provider on the south side is, wait for it, Chastain Park. And that's NYO, the Art Center. And we have so many thousands upon thousands of residents that are served on the south side of Sandy Springs with the Chastain facilities. Now, we do have constraints because it's in the city of Atlanta, but by your own conversations recently, as it related to the service of underserved communities in particular, and I would say this would be my highest priority, we really need to explore more opportunities. I think you're doing a great job. I know you talked to Josh Burr, but we've talked to Rosa McHugh at the Conservancy. Please, let's explore opportunities for contract for services. We need to meet people where they are. And in the case of the South Side, they're south and they're at Chastain Park. And we have residents up and down Roswell Road who have the same sort of needs that other residents have north of 285, but maybe lack the resources over at the Northwood area and in some of our lower economic groups. Just because of virtue of the fact that they live on the south side, I don't want to miss out on potential opportunities. They have to be carefully controlled. They have to serve Sandy Springs citizens, but even our North End programs serve non-Sandy Springs citizens. We serve citizens from Roswell, probably East Cobb and Dunwoody. I have no doubt of that. So let's make a purposeful effort, please, to look for contract for service opportunities, particularly in the underserved communities on the south side. And I would say that's it. I think those are my biggies. And I would go back to Dr. Kelly. That's kind of a hanging chad, respectfully, Dr. Kelly, when you bring up the comparative amounts that people, respectfully, that people, other communities spend. We kind of need to know more. What are the is it apples to apples? Is it, thank you for sharing those numbers, but I need to know a whole lot more to draw any conclusions. I think we do know from the conversation that was had at a couple of meetings ago that we have needs that are not met. So
And that's all I'm saying.
okay, well, I just wanted to clarify, and I think it's helpful to know what those other cities spend, so and we need to make sure, I think that's an interesting avenue of exploration. But that was a massive difference between some of those communities. And we need to do it. And maybe part of the master plan process is to do some really deep dive surveying of our community with partnering with civic organizations, the Conservancy, sports, maybe NYO and others, to really have a deep understanding of how we are meeting the needs or not meeting the needs of our community when it comes to recreational services. And I am so glad after all of these years to hear us actually mentioning the possibility of accelerating our trail and park spending, because I think we are behind. But we desperately need to make sure that that's led by Jack Masura and many others with us in tandem. Otherwise, it's set up for failure. So I like the plan. I like the talking. I just hope we execute it in a really smart way.
I have a question about the plan. So is this plan just specifically recreation and parks, or will also look at trails and paths? Because I think the park, I'm just saying, if we're talking about a bond, is it just gonna be for potential? So we're saying we're focused, my fear is, while we have the master trail plan, it did talk about trails, there's kind of a dotted line about the paths. But the paths, I don't really think were front and center with that, and we built quite a few now, right, where they're under construction, 12 foot, and I just wanna make sure that we have the full picture. Totally agree, the pay-as-you-go model. I don't think anybody in this room will be on the face of this earth by the time to get there if we go at the current rate and speed.
So the comprehensive parks master plan is really going to look at the parks and the parks facilities. We can certainly add the component to the scope of work to do, I don't want to call it an update because we're currently working the trail master plan, but we can add that as a component to
I just
that.
think of the opportunity.
I agree.
is
It
there.
needs to be a
I
complete
mean,
picture.
we need to have, if we have 30, but how much more we have to put in place, plus we have paths. We want to make sure that we get the priority correct with the community.
So I will note that in our 2019 Parks Master Plan, one of the top things that the community was asking for were trails. And so in tandem with that, we did the Trail Master Plan. So bringing the two together is absolutely something that we want to do as part of this.
I just want to be careful, because trails and paths, the paths are along the roads, and those were a dotted line, they were a little different.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that all of that, if we can, is encompassed in what we consider, and we would work with the communities, partner with them.
Sure, and that's typical. I mean, you want to start from the comprehensive plan from the top, not just the park comprehensive plan, but the city's comprehensive plan. Make sure you're meeting the goals, overarching goals of the city. And then I
that's
would
about
make
to
sure,
change too, right? We're going to start that process.
I would make sure that they integrate any green space plans through community development, through public works, the trail master plans, everything needs to connect as part of that parks master.
Careful.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Brett. A couple of quick things. Have you talked to the folks at Chastain Park? Sounds like you have. Have you ever explored with them joint, I don't know, opportunities where Sandy Springs can partner with NYO or somebody to do a South Sandy Springs / Chastain area event, or program of some kind?
So our relationship with NYO has been through the nonprofit Arts and Recreation Grant, where we funded them in the past. Unfortunately, they didn't get their grant application into the city this past cycle. But that's been primarily our relationship with them.
Well, they use some of our fields though. I mean,
They do, on occasion, they'll
There's some
come up.
back and forth. They're also building, there's a massive capital campaign. So there's
Yeah.
gonna be a whole new gym.
And I don't know where they are with that.
They're gonna fully fund it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a parking deck. They're gonna fully fund it and the
There's lots
conservancy.
going on down there.
Yeah, I just think, and I think Eden's probably, she's been busy. Everybody's been busy, but I think Eden, you're due a meeting at some point with Rosa McHugh. And there may be opportunities with leagues and other things just to explore the partnerships. I'm
Oh,
not.
yeah, just to talk to them about joint things, and if we kick in some dough, then we can attract Sandy Springs residents to go there, then that makes them better for everybody.
And Colin,
At Morgan Falls.
at Morgan Falls and Josh at NYU, they have a really tight relationship. They're working together very well, and they all speak very highly of, I mean, I'm not trying to overly flatter you, but.
I'll take it. Come on.
Highly, and Michael, and before you, Michael Perry. I just thank you for following up, John. I think there's untapped opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's really,
right there.
the
I
truth of
get
the
it.
matter is a lot of families, you know, we do it without Sandy Springs City involvement. It's just we go sign up, we pay. It's really it's probably more the communities that just don't have access to the north and the east that are left unserved. But I think you start with data and conversation.
All I'm saying is,
That's what you're saying.
continue conversation with them. That's a second thing. I've had two conversations in the last couple of months about somebody that went to Morgan Falls to use the pavilion, the covered pavilion area, and somebody else was in there. And when they went in and said to the folks, we already have reserved this, it was, nobody could tell who actually had dibs on it. So is there a board down there? I remember seeing, was there a board down there that says today's activity? You know, the Paulson family is from noon to 2 and McHugh from 2 to 6.
Yeah, so we have the digital signboards. I don't know that we've put the reservations on there, which we can talk to communications about that. They all get a permit. You know, when they reserve the facility, they get, permit.
I get it. The point is, if there's already a family in there cooking away, when the group that shows up that reserved it, all they can do is say, I have a permit, but they're already there. As opposed to if there was a board there that had them, they could easily go to the board and say, I'm glad you're enjoying the place, but we have a schedule here from noon to 2, so back your stuff up and go.
Yeah, and then we could go old school and have our park ambassadors just post it.
Stick up sign.
A
Just
weekend calendar.
something so that there's no, he said, she said going on there, there's a little more communication. And then the second point I had, when we had the 2-way trail ribbon cutting, I was talking to one of the officers about how do they patrol this area? And they said, well, we're trying to figure out how to patrol that area. And also, how do they know when there's actually an incident? Because there's nothing out there. So I guess one of the thoughts was, do we put signs at the entrance to both sides to say, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the park. Please carry your cell phone with you in case you need assistance. At least we're triggering them that put their cell phone in their pocket, don't leave it in the car. And that leads me to the next question about camera installation. You have it listed here, $136,000. Is that actually to have some cameras installed, or is that to put the conduits in?
No, the conduit's in. It's all rubbed in as part of
There's
it.
gonna be a couple of those stations that are there with cameras on them, that like every 500,000 feet or something.
That's correct.
That's the next step, is those?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that will help then too.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Sorry.
I just, one more thing, to Andy's comment, the only point I'm making is that if you do a comparison department by department, look at cities, for the most part, we're on par with cities based on population and other things. There are these huge deltas for some reason when it comes to Parks and Rec, that I just think is interesting. I don't want to ascribe any meaning to it. I don't want to tell anybody what to think. I'm just saying that the data, it's very interesting when we do the comparisons as it relates to Parks and Rec. That's all I'm saying.
And I do know, Councilwoman, for South Fulton, they do have a community center they
Right.
operate, which is a big increase in
Community
their,
center.
a community center. I was looking back, they doubled their budget from 23 to 24 because the community center came online. So that's
They
really
do have
what's
a
all.
community center.
Nobody has Brookline.
Yeah.
Which is a huge facility.
I would like to have something like that.
Stimulate that.
Okay, any other?
We gotta get through this.
Yep.
We got
Next up
council meeting coming up.
Is Kristen for community development, and we're gonna try to keep moving.
All right, I'm gonna pretend to be Ginger for a little bit. Okay, so for community development, I'm gonna walk through a couple of just workload metrics so you all can see that. This chart relates mostly to our planning team and the work that they do, big picture wise. So variances, you see character area map amendments, zoning certifications, text amendments, those sorts of things, and the major public hearings as well.
Closer to the mic, you talk very softly.
Sorry, yes, and I'll speak louder.
Is that working?
I don't think it's working.
No, it's not working. I'll say it.
I'll just talk louder.
Thank you.
I'm capable of that.
Outside voice.
Okay, so these are just general metrics that we show you all every year for the planning and zoning team, and these have been relatively consistent over the past couple of years. Here you can see our permitting activity. This too is relatively consistent year over year. We've had a few less inspections in FY24, but overall, generally speaking, this is trending consistently over the past couple of years. Code enforcement cases, much the same in terms of workload year over year. There are a couple of things that are varying. And what you'll see here is that our MRH code inspections, those are picking up. So last year was a half year of getting half of them done. So that's why you see 49 of the complexes there for FY 2024. So for FY 25, that will be all of the units that are covered.
So what's driving down the short-term rentals? I mean, it kind of was up and it's really going down.
We aren't seeing as many complaints with short-term rentals, honestly. So this is mostly complaint driven with short-term rentals.
Right.
And that could be trash, it could be parking, it could be a number of things, but frankly, we're seeing less of that overall. Yes. Okay, so the enhancement request for community development this year. Right now, we have a part-time lobby ambassador. This has been a really lovely thing for the community and for folks that are coming into the lobby. This helps both with the permitting area as well as revenue. So when somebody comes into the lobby, there's a person there to greet you. You're not just looking at all of the little cubbies where folks are sitting. And this person can help triage. Do you have an appointment? Who are you meeting with? Let me get that for you. They can also help people get into the system, create their account in OpenGov, do that sort of thing. So this is something that is well loved in the community and we've had rave reviews about it. What we'd like to do is move this from a part-time to a full-time position. So we'll have that person in the lobby all day instead of just a few hours during the day. And if they aren't actively assisting folks in the lobby or helping out with things behind the scenes, we also want this person to start helping facilitate open records requests for community development. As you all have seen Rocky talk about over the past couple of years, those open records requests have been ticking up. And we don't have a dedicated body in community development who's focused on that. Our administrative assistants in the 3 different divisions are helping out with the open records requests, and they have hundreds of these. So this the idea here is that this person can kind of bring all of those requests together, help train folks, and make sure that the records are in a good shape and that we all know how to get to them and that people are trained to put them where they need to go.
I thought the lobby assistant that we had down there, that we have down there part-time was a volunteer position.
It is not. It is a paid part-time position.
Paid position.
Mhm.
Because we have people all the time ask, how do you volunteer to work within the city? And I thought that was one of the things we were doing.
We give them all to Bill.
And you take them.
So that's our operational request. And then you'll see 3 capital requests for community development this year. The big one, the big ticket item that everybody's excited about is our 10-year comprehensive plan update. You'll see in the 5-year plan that we anticipate there could be additional monies needed next fiscal year. The contract award to Roadside Harwell when we did this in 2015 was $950,000. So we do anticipate that this is going to be a pricey endeavor, but this comes with so much community engagement, so much outreach. This is a heavy lift. This will take us about 18 months. So this is a really big project for us that we will start working on. We're working on the scope for that right now, actually. Citywide design guidelines. So this is an add-on to the current design guidelines process. The design guidelines process is really focused on the private realm, so commercial buildings, that sort of thing. The goal here, I was working with Chris when he was here with Public Works, Facilities, Rec and Parks to try to bring together the tie-in between the private realm and the public realm. So this will help create some cut sheets that show our public realm standards, make those more clear. How do they vary? Do they vary in City Springs from other places? What exactly does that public realm need to look like? So this will make it very clear for staff and everyone who might be building public streetscape, what that needs to look like. The housing needs assessment update. This is something that council brought up at retreat this year. So this would update our 2020 housing needs assessment. And this will feed then into our comprehensive plan very nicely. This would only take about 3 months to get done. So it's a quick process. It's really data driven. And then we'll be able to use that and feed into the comp plan data. Yes, sir.
Was anything accomplished from the last time this was done?
The housing needs assessment is just a needs assessment.
It's just numbers, just giving us statistics.
Yes, there was no
It
work
doesn't
plan
accomplish
associated with it.
So we're spending $75,000 not to accomplish anything.
So the data, it doesn't include a work plan itself, but the data then can feed into the comprehensive plan, which does include a work program for housing. And that, of course, will be a policy question
We know
for
of a
council.
single housing need that's been satisfied with our housing need assessment?
Well, I will say that we've made a lot of changes from a code perspective to try to accommodate the needs that we saw through the needs assessment. So you have incentives built into your development code, and those were all things that we saw as part of this. And additionally, we changed a lot of our standards. So for instance, we allow now a smaller lot than we used to. We allow a townhome that's less wide so that we can accommodate more of those kinds of units. So we made a lot of changes in response to this, to the code.
Sounds like this should go into the comprehensive plan then, or the design guidelines, rather than being a separate assessment.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Yes, sir.
I'm interested in the easy build permitting for homeowners residential contractors program that kicked off a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
By the way, I'm a big fan. Looks
Yes.
great on paper, and as I click through it, has anybody been taking advantage of it, and how's it being implemented? Is it working?
I haven't checked in this week to see if we had any appointments. We did not have any appointments scheduled our first week. But this is one where right now folks are often using our Thursday developer meetings in a similar fashion. But the idea is that this gives them more time. Those Thursday developer meetings are only 45 minutes, and often folks don't come to those. They don't find out about them until they're a couple of reviews in and we're still having trouble getting them to where they need to be. So we did a communications push, and we will continue to do that to try to inform the public. We've got information on our website. So it's really trying to get the public more aware that this program exists, because you don't know it until you need it.
Well, it's a great program.
Yeah.
I wish more people knew about it so that there'd be less concern. All
Yeah.
right, thank you.
So when will we start working on the 10-year comprehensive plan?
So we're working on the scope, and then we won't put this out for bid until later this year, and work won't start until January of next year.
Kristen, we need, this is not necessarily a budget item, but while we're on the subject of community development. We need code enforcement to look at some of these vacant lots, like the old Steak and Shake place. They're just getting really weedy and ugly.
Okay.
They at least need to keep cleaned up, mowed, not looking like a blighted area.
Yes,
So
sir.
we'd like to really put some focus on cleaning up some of these lots that are just out there.
Got it. We will do
Do we
that.
have a count of shuttered lots, commercial and residential, things that have permits but are sort of inactive? I mean, I feel like that number's been growing a little bit. I mean, we've got the old Cornet Club down on the south side. We've got the Waffle House.
Mhm.
The bank over here. We've got residential lots. I'm troubled by the lack of progress in some of our redevelopment areas. And can we quantify that with some data as well? And I think there was a question raised tonight, for example, again, about compliance on the gas station amortization.
Mhm.
And I'd like to see some data, but I think I appreciate the mayor's question about that. I wish we could be jumpstarting the redevelopment, but it feels like that the appearance up and down, in particular Roswell Road, is declining.
So we'll certainly work on that. We'll have a dedicated push with code enforcement and land development if appropriate. I will say that we have folks on staff who also are tracking those properties, especially when we know there's a developer who's maybe working on something. And I know that they reach out regularly to check in and see if they need anything. Can we help you? We really want to move this along. But we can certainly pull together a list of what we
That
know.
seems to be something in Chris's area also.
It is. Chris is engaged as well as our planning
Great
team.
job. There's a lot more conversation going on now that Chris is out there meeting with people.
Yes, he is.
So there's a lot more conversation going on that, again, waiting for some financing and some other things. And there's some nice projects that are in the offing.
Yes,
But in the meantime, they need to maintain their lots.
got it. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, Bill is coming up next to talk through the Performing Arts Center.
Good afternoon. So I want to touch base on signature events. It's a great program. As you know, we've certainly serviced a lot of people. 81,000 people have gone through this past year to all of our signature events. They are free. We are trying to cut that budget back a little bit through certain ways that we can be more productive with our team. Most of our signature events are handled through contracts. On our MLK event, there is a big contract that's out for some crafts that kids do that we know we can do in-house. And that's the way we're kind of looking at some of these events. City Green Live, the last several Aprils, and historically April has been pretty slow and the weather has really been harsh for us. So we've decided we'll start City Green Live in May and forego that extra show of very few patrons. Stars and Stripes, we anticipate the fireworks costs will go up. Our fireworks do come from China. We are anticipating some cost issues there, but we're preparing for it. Bluestone for this coming year, we're testing not doing the south stage. The children's area has been very successful down there. We feel that we can save a little bit of money on that event by kind of culminating it right up closer to this building and beefing up the art offerings and that kind of thing. Yes.
So last year, I remember people saying that they didn't know what Bluestone was. And so didn't we talk about changing it to like Sandy Springs Arts and Music Festival? Is there a reason we call it Bluestone? I mean, I know there's Bluestone, but people they didn't even realize that it was in Sandy Springs.
No, I'm not sure that kind of got done before I got here, but I'll certainly look into it and talk about possibly renaming it.
I mean, we are in Sandy Springs. And we know Sandy Springs, so
There was a conflict between when we went to get Sandy Springs Arts Festival. There's another group that has that name reserved. And so it created some challenges, as I recall.
There was also some confusion about the old Sandy Springs Festival, the existing event that happens, and Bluestone was thought of as being a new name because it is Bluestone Road that it's typically held on. But
Even if we call it Sandy Springs, Bluestone Arts, I don't know, just put Sandy Springs in there somewhere.
sure, yeah, we'll certainly look at what we can do to make it more visible for folks that it is a Sandy Springs centric event.
So, Oktoberfest. We tested Oktoberfest last year. I asked for this amount of money. They gave me less to see if it would work, and it worked. So they're giving me my money to do it a little bit stronger this year. So let's,
Real quick,
yes,
it really would be nice if you totaled up the attendance numbers.
I actually have them right here. So I can tell you
If you
what
could
they-
share them with the class, that'd be.
I will share them with the class. In 2023, 63,550 attendees. And in 2024, 81,200. Remember, these are estimates because of the nature of the
Thank you.
events.
Nice growth.
And if I recall, we also tested the Juneteenth event in a way, and it was
It
successful.
was hugely successful.
I don't really see a change in the budget there, but that's.
Well, that's because someone's doing a wonderful job of fundraising.
Right, I'm not here begging. Yes, I'm not here begging,
Good
but I'm
beggar.
saying,
Keep going.
this is the, I mean, per capita is the cheapest.
You want more money?
Yes, I do.
I mean, well, 'cause, yeah, I mean,
I want
I
it to
think-
be
I
on
think there was-
par with everything else on that
well,
board.
no, there was a certain question about, and I think the job is amazing, about engaging the community and partners, but we've talked about,
Yeah, I'm not asking for enough to completely subsidize the.
Well, it says
The
it went up to
subsidy.
$15,000. What was
It was
last
15
year?
last year.
Oh, it was 15
So it's
last
15,
year.
15, yeah. Even though I don't know what we quadrupled, what's the 650 to 3,000?
It was actually 10, and then we upped it to 15.
Right.
And then
15.
Do you have a number that you're
so
thinking
it's worth noting for you all that the signature events and the Performing Arts Center does not get a transfer from the general fund. So this is revenue that is generated out of the Performing Arts Center fund that is being used to pay for signature
Yeah.
events.
been such an impactful event. I
Yeah.
just think, I mean, unlike a lot of these other ones, the council members actually were like intimately involved with the planning of it versus all of these other ones. So Dr. Kelly, you should maybe separate from this meeting today.
Yeah, I'll
Give input to what the needs are, since you are, like, this is very unique as a planning member of the, and we don't plan, but you plan, so. Which is,
South, that's why I didn't get it.
okay, yeah, no, I think you take so much time on it. I think the city's probably getting a lot of free time from council member from the second council district.
How many sundown socials are there?
Counted that up.
I did count that up, but I don't have that in front of me. Do you know?
It's something similar to the farmer's market, because it runs around that same time, so I'd say there's gotta be. at least
But
around
farmer's
30
market
different-
is every week and this is
Every
it
Thursday.
starts later. I think it's in the 20s.
25,
Yeah.
He
so-
plays cornhole for a while.
So we want to look at some, just to show you some revenue numbers from these events. Farmers market, because there are so many, does bring in some revenue. And as you go down, the expenses on these events, what Eden was just kind of hinting to, we do pay the expenses for all these. The PAC pays for PD, we bring some security in. There's a lot of, all these costs are actually coming out of the PAC budget to do these events. So while we do bring in some revenue, the total revenue we bring in is $189,000 with leaving us an exposure of $750,000 last year that came out of the PAC budget to pay for these events.
On the city green lot,
No, I'm just gonna observe the farmer's market being profitable. It's never profitable when I ran it, so.
Well, it's still not really profitable. It's helpful though, isn't it? Oh, no, it is profitable. Sorry.
Are there any events, I know other than Juneteenth, that leverage sponsorships? I feel like Bluestone does, right?
We get some sponsorships from Bluestone. And as we move down this year, we're going to focus a lot more on doing some sponsorship work. But we haven't had the boots on the ground that some people do to get this done. But we're gonna.
Taking references.
So we have volunteer right here. I'm really good at this.
I think we've been in several meetings saying, should we ask Dr. Kelly to come?
That's good.
That's one of
I
the
agree.
areas we've
Sponsorships could
always
help here.
overlooked. And I've been moaning about it for several years, is sponsorships. And the one I always take into consideration is the ice skating rink. Where, a company like, every person who skates in the ice skating ring has one thing in common. They're all clients of Georgia Power. There's no reason we shouldn't have Georgia Power or a similar type of utility like that sponsoring that type of thing, since it's all their clients. And I think the reason we haven't been successful on that is we've never emphasized getting somebody to get out there and do it, because that does not happen for free.
We don't
And
have a development.
and a person in development like that is extremely expensive.
Yes.
I've hired them in the past and they are extremely expensive, but they can be extremely profitable.
Well, there's some recruiting discussions going on to try and.
Oh, I've been telling that people have been telling me that for 3 years now.
There were a couple of people that, at least one that was in the target and then decided that they didn't want to do that.
They didn't want to do that.
It's a tough job.
It's no question.
And,
That's why it's so expensive.
Yeah, but there are conversations going on trying to find the right person. Just as late we waited until we got Chris Burnett. You got to have a similar personality, somebody who understands sales, who's get out and go.
Not
Have
afraid to
lunch
knock
and
on
breakfast
doors.
and go have lunch and breakfast and dinners with prospects.
And ask.
And those are.
Is there a role for hospitality and tourism?
No, not really. This is something that needs to be working in Bill's operation. We're trying to find the right person.
I remain concerned about the skating, as we have a local business that is in that business. And, I think you all have had conversations, and there's only so much we can do to force it, but it does trouble me that we were so actively at their peak. I do like the outdoor skating. I like it, but just I don't know that we gave fully thought through the impact to a local business. That is their business. In fact, I saw another skating rink, I think in North Fulton, has now converted to pickleball courts. And it's such a nice asset in our city. And, is the role of the public, the public government to do something that so dramatically impacts the local business. I'm uncomfortable with it.
How many people did we have in it this year?
14,000.
14,000. Is that an increase from last year?
It actually is not. We had 16 the first year, but we also trimmed the schedule to make it more feasible financially. And then we also had a free, that opened Brookhaven, had a free skating rink for several weeks, which I think hurt us a little bit. Even though it was plastic, it wasn't ice. And I do want to just say that I did meet with the ice rink guys here, as you know, and offered them a lot to try and get involved with him, and they just really didn't want to get involved with us.
Are they, I think somebody told me they're almost fully booked and they really didn't have open time.
Public skating is over the holidays, a massive revenue producer for them. When schools are out, and so for a lot of families, I'm just passing along information that I've been told, so I haven't seen their books, but that families, do this activity once or twice. And, so there's now another option for them, which it is competition. It's just a philosophical question of, to what extent should we be doing something that so deeply potentially impacts a local business? It's a tough one.
So on a positive note about the skating rink, we have a new director of operations who really looked at this project and brought the costs of it down. The staffing costs We hired some part-time people that actually came in and ran it instead of using a staffing company, which really allowed us to bring this proposed budget down to under $100,000 as compared to 230, I think it was last year. And just so you know, the actual build of the skating rink is in facilities. So yeah, we take a real quick look. We pulled some of the conference center events to show the impact the conference center has on the PAC budget. And a typical two-day event can brought into us $80,000 in profit after expenses. Again, those expenses include everything it takes to run that event. If you look, the one that I really want to point out is the one-day corporate event rental down here, Studio Theater, was without food and beverage. So the asset of having our own food and beverage is really supporting a lot of what we do in the PAC. If you compare the P&Ls from the events that have food and beverage. Self-presented shows, these are the concerts that we do that the city actually presents. We go at risk for the money. This includes, this also includes the cultural things that we bring in that we know we might not really make money on, but it's important that the community get to see the ballet here, get to hear the symphony here. But we still manage to get an income out of this of about $180,000 last year. And again, all these expenses, if you look at them, there's nothing that, although there's some economy and scale working for the city, like we don't pay for the physical building, everything else is on our budget, and we are paying for police officers, catering, public safety, all the labor to do these concerts. So I just wanted to be clear that while it is nice having a city building, we're still operating just like any other theater would operate.
Well, it's also important because you are self-supporting that when we start thinking about offering free opportunities for building, it comes out of your pocket. And so if we want to do those kinds of things, we want to subsidize other things or provide extra resources for other groups, then we'll have to start taking money out of the general fund, which we've tried not to do. So we have to be kind of frugal with how we operate this facility if we still want it to operate as a standalone self-supporting institution.
Rusty, also, we had, in our original budgeting, we had figured that the theater program and stuff like that was gonna cost us several $1 million a year.
It was up to $2 million.
Indefinitely.
Right, and we have been able to avoid that.
Yeah, here we've been able to avoid that, actually got the profit.
Right. It comes down to management. Bill and his team have done a phenomenal job of managing this in a way that keeps us from having to subsidize it at the $1.5 to $2 million rate that was predicted.
Right.
So that means we have to be very careful in what we do with some of our presenting sponsors and others. We want them to all be successful, but we start taking money out of other programs around here to subsidize that if we get too generous.
So looking at the utilization, the really important number here is if you look at 2023 versus 2024, we've increased the number of events. The number of events is key to what's going on in our department and what we are asking for moving forward. So our requested enhancements, because we're doing more events and we know that food costs are going to go up a little bit, we're asking to increase our cost of goods to $178,640. And again, the same thing with us doing more events. What we're finding is our labor costs are going up. And again, it's a good thing actually, because we are just doing so many more events. Our additional staffing, we're We're asking for a kitchen supervisor. So if you don't know, we run our full catering department with a chef and a sous chef. And everybody else is from staffing companies, which leads to bringing in more staffing than probably we would need if we had full-time staff, because full-time staff knows the kitchen, full-time staff knows their job, where if we get a staffing person in who's never been there before, we're training them all over again. So we're asking for a kitchen supervisor to not only be there and beyond every day, but also to allow our sous chef and our chef to get some needed time off. We have an excellent chef right now. He's being a little overworked. I'd love to support him a little bit so that he sticks around and he has upped our food game so much. We're very fortunate. We also are looking for another rental event manager. We are turning away some dates not because we don't have space, but because we don't have people to manage the event when it comes in. So we also don't have someone out there proactively. If I go back to here, you see the corporate events are big money makers, where the social event, which was a mitzvah, actually, it's about a $4,000 or $5,000 event, which is great. But I need someone out there getting me more of these big corporate events where they're coming in, they're spending 1 day, 2 day, and they're doing a lot of lunch, breakfast, dinner, after parties. So my ask is to get someone in to help Amy so I can kick Amy out and have her go out and knock on some doors and get us some of the bigger clients.
Would that be a part-time or full-time job?
Full time.
I think that's a great idea.
So,
by the way, I'm encouraged by this report. This is fantastic. Considering we started this thing not really knowing, then we hit COVID and it killed it. Now we're back up, except on all cylinders.
Timmy's point was very well taken. We were expecting to subsidize this.
Oh, I remember.
And we haven't had to do that for 3 years now.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, we have a few more slides to go, and I'm going to try to move through them as quickly as possible so that you all have enough time for a break before council meeting starts. The Human Resources Department, I mentioned earlier in my presentation that we do have a position included this year for a risk and benefits administrator. This is going to be the single person at the city that will handle our risk management, our insurance needs, and also be our point of contact for our health insurance benefits, in particular, helping us to determine should we move towards self-funded versus fully funded. Had a meeting with our health insurance advisor last week. I'm feeling a little bit better about shifting over to a self-insured model from a fully insured. As you saw from our earlier slide, and I'm not going to go all the way back to the beginning, but if you want to flip in your book earlier, we're looking at paying nearly $11 million next year in health insurance. We have some real opportunities to realize savings there that we can invest back into our employees instead of those health insurance companies and their pharmacy benefit managers keeping the profits for themselves. In the finance department, we have in a request for a new revenue technician that would be for PDHQ. Now the facility is completed, we're going to have someone from the revenue department who will be there handling all cash and all revenue transactions that come in, whether it's through fines or fees that would be paid at PDHQ.
Eden,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
That's okay.
but I made a little check mark here too, because I noticed when we were looking at self-insurance, I'm a big believer in self-insurance too here. I see our general liability insurance is over $2 million. Have we had very many liability claims that we couldn't self-insure for $2 million?
Yes, we've had quite a few. Part of that is driven by, and we haven't seen the results of Governor Kemp's new legislation yet with the changes that was coming with the tort reform bill.
Right.
Much of that is being driven by that. There are actually cities in the state that cannot get general liability insurance. They will not insure them. Travelers, for example, no longer has a book of business in Georgia for municipal government. This is something that we need that position to help focus our efforts on.
And our claims against general liability are more than $2 million a year?
I need to get you an updated report on that, but depending upon the claim, and most of the claims are without basis, but they do in most cases exceed 2 million.
But I think, can't you do the same thing with that liability insurance that you do with with the benefits insurance where you have
Reinsurance.
reinsurance over a certain amount?
We've been
'Cause that's a
working,
big number.
Yes, sir.
Over $2 million.
we've been working for the last, I believe, 5 years now with Seville Public Entity. And those are some of the conversations I'm having with them for 26 because the number just keeps inching
Keeps
up.
that huge.
And Timmy, recall that while the governor's tort reform bill helps private sector businesses and to a lesser degree cities, there was legislation that was going to cap city liability started out as at 3 per incident, or 1 per incident, 3 total. That got hung up in the early sine die of the Senate and didn't get done. And so we have, because of the Milton case, we have open liability that could be multiple millions of dollars until that's resolved. Now, that case is going, Dan's not here, but that case is awaiting a decision by the Georgia Supreme Court to grant cert, to see if they'll take it up. If they don't, then we're hung with the Milton judgment and we have unlimited liability for anything in our right of way. And every stone and brick mailbox in this town
Has to come down.
is a potential liability. I'm not gonna say it has to come down, but you know, that it creates a liability for us and anything else that's in the right of way. So I would be a little hesitant until that's all cleared up about trying to go into general liability.
Okay, as long as we're looking into it though.
No. There's some challenges that hopefully will get resolved over the next 12 months that might allow us to go back and think about it. But for now, it's a challenge.
Thank you.
Next up is information technology. No new staffing requests for the department, but they have asked for an increase in infrastructure hardware replacement and workstation replacements and upgrades. In essence, we have units that are reaching end of warranty life and it's time to replace them. We are trying to get ahead of any tariffs. We're starting to see a little bit of movement on prices going up, but I had a conversation yesterday with our folks on that team looking to see what we can do to try to soften the blow of those tariffs. In the city clerk's office, there is an increase for $30,500 to add closed captioning to our meetings that are being live streamed. It's a $14,000 initial setup cost, and then there will be a recurring annual subscription of $16,500 that would move forward from year to year. And then election services, we are projecting a $300,000 cost in case there is a runoff election. You all will recall that the Public Service Commission has an election this fall, so we are not having to pay for a full citywide election for mayor and city council races this year.
Good.
Next is our facilities department. It's time to update our facility condition assessment. It was last conducted in January 2019. Now that we have PDHQ and the Fleet Center plus our 2 new fire stations online, we need to add those in and update the conditions of all of our facilities, of everything that we have. In site improvements, which we typically use as a catch-all, it includes mobile vehicle barricade system, which would be 4 per road. You've probably seen them at large scale public events. They are easily deployed so that they would roll out into the middle of the road and prevent a car from driving into a crowd, such as when we have City Green Live, the Bluestone Sandy Springs Music Arts and Festival, or Stars and Stripes. We also have included some improvements for the Performing Arts Center, specifically emergency signage and security devices in the theater, AV equipment upgrades for the conference center, audio equipment and microphones, some new kitchen equipment, lighting equipment, and video equipment for streaming. It's hard to believe, but our building here is now approaching 7 years old, and it is time to make some upgrades to some things.
Would that include the parking deck, like whatever needs to be done to make the signal better in there?
For cell service?
Cell and or Wi-Fi, I don't know. Nothing happens in there, so.
And I don't know that we can retrofit that, given the concrete and the.
I get cell service in the parking lot.
I get some, but concrete
Yeah.
buildings are just.
Yeah, it's
Well,
just
look
hard.
at all that, you've got all that rebar in there too, that's absorbing.
I thought didn't we just allocate money to redo some stuff in
We
the
did.
our
Yep.
parking deck?
And you'll be
But hasn't it been
hearing,
done yet?
no, you'll be hearing more about that, not today, but Dave will be coming back to give you an update on where we are with that. I know that it's going very well with 12 Oaks transitioning in to be our new parking provider. We're hearing really positive feedback on having them working here. Yes, ma'am.
Someone told me they got a ticket because they parked at Flower Child and it was under 2 hours and they said that they were told they have to register their car. Is that through the machine? Like, do you have to?
Well, they do have to scan their, as soon as they park, and they're out there with they got a lobby, they have ambassadors out there that are talking to people, but they have to scan their card. Nobody should receive a ticket. Everything right now is a grace period. I think the grace period ends next week, but they have to scan the QR code as soon as they park. That way they know when that 2 hour starts. They can't go out there and scan after the 2 hours.
We need some more signage to help
Yeah.
people know that. I don't think there's enough awareness of how we switch to a new system. So we need some signage in there to let people know that you can now pay for parking on your phone, what the app is. Just needs to be a little bit more visible.
Okay. All right. Under capital request for facilities maintenance, 1.25 million. This is a general facilities maintenance updates and just keeping things in good working order. Then the Sandy Springs Racket Center renovation. We all know that facility is rather old. This will, it was actually built in 1970. This $1 million will cover new storefront glass, new commercial grade doors, replacement of sidewalk, new flooring throughout the facility, decking around the exterior of the building, interior painting, and installing flagstone on the exterior skin of the building. Yes, ma'am.
What if we're talking about doing a bond, so that could mean a whole new facility possibly, so should we hold off on something like this?
Given that we don't know for certain that a bond would be approved, I think we should make these repairs for now because you're over there a lot more than I am. I think we should make these repairs, knowing that it may take a few years before we can actually rebuild the facility.
Can you read the repairs one more time?
Well, we need a deeper dive into this one.
Yeah.
Sure. Storefront glass, commercial grade doors, replacement of almost 2,000 linear foot of sidewalk, new flooring throughout the facility, decking around the exterior of the building, interior painting, and installing flagstone on the exterior skin.
That does seem like a lot of money considering we could possibly be tearing it down or moving it.
Sure. Others, are you?
I want to know, I mean.
I'd be interested in a tour just to see
Okay.
how bad are these doors, how bad's the
I
sidewalk.
mean, the tour
You
will
can
help.
arrange that would help.
Do it too, but I think it's still fundamental
$1 million
policy
a lot of
question,
money.
whether we want to spend this million now. Sort of like feel like we've had this conversation around the Abernathy Arts Center, right? Sort of a similar.
Yeah.
Kind of conversation.
So let's go
And we're
with-
having it around Hammond too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can, this is still early in the budget process. We can placehold this. And we can do a little bit of a deeper look, not at the end of a 2.5 hour budget session.
Yep. Happy to do that. Last item here for capital improvement is Trowbridge, a shelter for the signage, our temporary signage that is used when there's road closures or there's a detour ahead. Right now it's sitting outside and it's not being protected, so we need to add the money to add that onto the existing building up there. In the communications department, we're asking for funding for a refresh of the City Springs district material, which includes all of the banners that are here, signage that we were just talking about. Also, an on-call photography and videography services. We tried previously to have that as an in-house position and quickly realized that the quality wasn't what we needed it to be. So we have been contracting out some of our photography and video. If you saw the Springway video as well as the police headquarters video, that's what we're talking about expanding here. And that is the quality of that. A request for customer relationship management software. We want to test this out first and believe that ultimately it would go citywide. We're looking at Zoho for that. And the big one here is the Web Content ADA Accessibility Program. The U.S. Department of Justice last year issued a final rule giving governments, state and local governments, a set timeline that we have to make sure that our website is ADA accessible. So this is not an option. We have to put this money in. And then the last for the capital is transitioning the outdoor art program to an interior art program. That was discussed during the work session at our last council meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Suggestion.
Sure.
As well, a small investment in technology that would allow us to be able to project at HOA meetings,
Okay.
assuming that they don't have and if they don't have it built in. So just something like a portable projector.
We'll look at that in IT and see.
Okay, well, maybe
Yeah.
we may already have.
We may have one done.
Yeah.
We've got some projectors, but I know now they make some that are like
Right.
super duper tiny. So, okay. All right. Finally, update on our staffing this year, the budget as it's currently building out, we are proposing adding 5.5 FTEs. We've talked about them previously, but in the finance department, that's a new revenue technician, an HR risk and benefits administrator, a fleet assistant to help with all of the work that goes on up there and keeping track of our fleet. Facilities, a new AV tech that would be based at PDHQ. Police, a new uniform patrol sergeant, and transitioning the existing lobby ambassador from part-time to full-time. Here is an overview of our primary contract service providers. I won't read these to you all. Many of these firms we've been using, some since incorporation, like Blunt Construction Company. They've been doing street and sidewalk maintenance for us for many, many years. Continuum Global Solutions, as I mentioned, is the new name of Faneuil. That is our call center, our 24-hour call center. Here is our summary on nonprofit funding. What we are currently proposing in the budget, Abernathy Art Center has a contractual 3% escalator. Community Assistance Center staying the same at $200,000. It is time for another household hazardous waste program. As you all know, we do that every other year. We've also rounded up the contribution to Keep Sandy Springs Beautiful for their main operations to $100,000. The capital program continues at $50,000, seeing the demand for services through the nonprofit Arts and Recreation Grant Program that has been increased to $200,000 to be distributed through the program. Sandy Springs Youth Sports has a 5% contractual escalator that is included. The Youth Sports Scholarship Program remains the same at $25,000, and Solidarity Sandy Springs remains the same at $25,000. Within the fleet fund, we are proposing a replacement truck for community development. This would be a Ranger or a Maverick. Fire administration vehicles, this is 7 vehicles that would be replaced. Police fleet, this is 16 vehicles to be replaced. Public Works is 2 Rangers or Mavericks, and then Recreation and Parks is a replacement Maverick or Ranger as well. Within the tree fund, we are proposing 35.
How many community development, is that one or?
That's 1, the 35 is 1. Yes, ma'am. Within the tree fund, surveys remain at 35,000, maintenance at 200,000, capital projects 175,000, Trees Atlanta investment at 50,000, invasives removal at 50,000, and then tree education programs at 20,000 for a total of 530. And then finally, the last 2 slides that we have is a summary of the capital budget assumptions that are listed on all of the prior slides that we walked through today. I will not read all of these to you, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
All right. Wrap up questions.
Mayor, if I may, if I could ask of council, if you have other questions or feedback that you would like to go home and think about, please email them to me. Hopefully by the end of next week so that we have time to prepare responses. We will follow up on all the questions that were brought up today. so that we make sure to address those in budget workshop 2.
Did you already say there's no ballot this year?
There is no ballot
I missed
this year.
that. Okay.
And should we leave our binders here?
You may take your binder.
We take,
Yes. But please bring it back when you come back in 2 weeks in budget workshop 2.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned at 4:50.
Thank you all.
Thank you.